our brother man. In every nation in the Caribbean, we suffering down in the Caribbean. And it's all because of stinking oppression, repressive education for a chosen few. So many brothers on the corner, cause no school to go, no work to do, crying sin kids, the crying Nevis, in Antigua, in Dominica, oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone.
Shut alive, shut alive!
Colonialism went, oh that I know. But oppression never ever let we go. They granted independence few by few, but oppressors never ever left them to. With his imperialistic game plan, he monopolized the land. Now the people of the Caribbean ain't got much food, ain't got much land. The crying Binsha, Erie back in Grenada, in Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone.
Shut alive, shut alive!
The thing that hurt me most about oppression is the involvement of we politicians. You both brother to help fight oppression. Brother get in there and join the bandwagon. You oppose the ruling party, you become an enemy, and you could swear to Jah Almighty. That's your destiny, your destiny. The crying NASA in Bermuda, in Aruba, Martinique, St. Lucia, oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone. Oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone. Oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone. Leave we alone. Oppressors, 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 oppressors.
Yes, that's the sound of the man Beckett, and that track is called Oppression. That's taking place around the globe in our little island, the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, and more so in our island of Queen City, Nevis. Enough of special line on there, the people. I'm DJ Morrishaw, and I'm coming to you live and direct from the Gaza here. I'm back on base here in the Buggedown Bronx. The weather in this area, it's kind of windy outside there. Sun is trying to peep through the clouds, but it's very windy. This evening, we're going to be, as usual, chit-chatting with a few folks, bringing some updated information to you, jam a few music. My brethren's there from the island of Nevis, Brother Carlisle Powell and Brother Kelvin Daly, scheduled to join me this evening. As soon as they are ready to join in, we'll definitely bring them to you. But in the meantime and between time, I'm going to just drop a few tracks and give some updates on what is going on, you know, with the oppression there in our little beloved federation and around the globe. As I said, there is a saying back in the days, when your right hand offend you, you take it off, but many people would not have any right hand leave. The amount of offensive things that has been taking place there in our beloved Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. I want to thank, before I get into it and forget, our Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Terence Jew, for joining me on Saturday last week there. Having a good chit chat, giving some updates to the folks on what's happening there in the last 7 months since the Labour Party took over the reins of the government of St. Kitts Nevis. So that conversation was a real interesting one, very encouraging, and I want to say kudos to our Honorable Prime Minister. 2 weeks prior, we had our Attorney General, the man Garth Wilkins, who also made a very great presentation. I see Brother Daly is up for batting already. We're hanging on for Carlisle Powell to join us, and we will jump straight into the Geronimo, whatever we have to discuss this evening. But, you know, while I'm waiting for Carlisle to join me, let me take this opportunity here and drop a brand new track. There's some brand new tracks coming out for the St. Thomas Carnival for this year. And, you know, we have a couple of local Kittitian division live in the Virgin Islands there that normally participate in the carnival activities. Well, one of my brethren there, multi-crown king, the Mighty Pat, the brother Samuel Ferdinand, sent me 2 brand new tracks here over the weekend so that I can bust them this evening. So I'm going to bust the first one. It's called Governor, You Change. Well, I know we changed governor in St. Kitts from male to female, but I'm going to let you guys figure out what the Mighty Pat is singing about in the Virgin Islands. But I think his 2 tracks is 2 beautiful tracks for the upcoming carnival in next month, April. And I look forward to seeing the Mighty Pat and taking part there in the Calypso Ding-a-ling in the Virgin Islands. So, Brother Daly, stand by. Let me drop this track by Mighty Pat and I'll come to you in a bit. Governor, you change.
Hello. Did you know that I, Mighty Pat, is the only Calypsonian in the Virgin Islands to hold 5 Calypso titles in 1 year and swear to uphold Calypso for as long as I live? Down in Frederickston, the governor speak, I laugh and I shake me head. You hear like? Everybody start to scream, everybody start to clap. I hope they could stand the pain when they get the slap. Governor, you change for the water. Not only you change for the wassa, but for Sarara. All who used to give you problem, you're giving problem to them. Even them who voted for you, you're firing all of them. One thing I want you to do, before you drink your rum and you coke, fire all of them who working at public work. Why you say party? Commissioner keeping party in the office. The street them still ain't fixed pothole. Fire him, fire you hole. Playtime is over. Tell them, Governor, do your work or you know where you have to go. Oh, when you make the right decisions, you know everybody will cuss. Fire one of them, Governor, you know you can't trust. Governor, you change. You change for the wassa. Not only you change for the wassa, but for Sarara. All who used to give you problem, you're giving problem to them. Even them who voted for you, you're firing all of them. One thing I want you to do, don't get hit the drop on the back. Fire all of them with bogus government contract. Donkey, telling, he don't have to answer to the devil, but he must answer to God. Rastafari. These beautiful Virgin Islands, land of paradise. I love these islands, I tell you they are so nice. But they accuse you, Governor, of being the spoiler. Now you put down your foot, and what they balling for? Governor, you change. You change for the wassa. Not only you change for the wassa, but for Sarara. All who used to give you problem, you're giving problem to them. Even them who voted for you, you're firing all of them. One thing I want you to do, I don't care if you can knock them down. Fire all of them from the taxi commission. Governor, you change. You change for the wassa. Not only you change for the wassa, but for Sarara. All who used to give you problem, you're giving problem to them. Even them who voted for you, you're firing all of them. One thing I want you to do, and you could do it with a smile. Fire all of them who say you have an outside child. Governor, you change. You change for the wassa. Not only you change for the wassa, but for Sarara. All who used to give you problem, you're giving problem to them. Even them who voted for you, you're firing all of them. You are the only governor who treat taxi like a toy. No wonder some people calling you a little boy. I can't believe that Sanis voted for the taxi stand, and now he's fighting to take it away. Like a sauce up. Puerto Rican outside, white inside, and park black when you have to.
Sounds of the Mighty Pat. That's one is called Governor, You Change. That's a serious track there by the Mighty Pat, you know, for the 2023 St. Thomas Carnival. Brother Daly, you had your camera perfect a while ago, so you send it back to the original spot. Take it back to where you were before after you asked to change it. You turn it on the other way, you get a full screen. Holding for the man, Brother Carlisle, we're going to drop one more track by the Mighty Pat, and then we will go right into some conversation until Brother Daly decide to join us. Brother Powell, sorry. Stand by for Mighty Pat. This one is called Put God First. Very great advice for our politicians there in the Caribbean, you know?
Greetings. From the time that we have taken press out of schools, it's like a cuss throughout the whole world. Children have gone astray. Remember long time ago, filled with joy and happiness. We might not have much to eat, but like everybody was blessed. Go and leave your house open, come back, meet everything intact. Those were the good old days, as a fact. We all know that they ain't coming back. Cause when all that goodness gone, I wake up. The good things I used to see suddenly stop. And when all my happiness walk right through that door, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat no more. Cause when I look around and see how people killing people, most young people of today in grave jail or in trouble. Who's supposed to bury we is we burying them. So you see how all my goodness and all my happiness end like the whole world costs. That's because we're forgetting to put God first. We forget. No love at all. War. Where is the peace that we used to know long time ago? We need a helping hand. We just can't continue like this. There is so much going on over one bunch of stupidness. Money, drugs, envy, power, hatred, and jealousy. Who want to act blind like they can't see? The whole world is now a catastrophe. Cause when all my goodness gone, I wake up. The good things I used to see suddenly stop. Lord. And when all my happiness walk right through that door, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat no more. Cause when I look around and see how people killing people, most young people of today in grave jail or in trouble. Who's supposed to bury we is we burying them. So you see how all my goodness and all my happiness end like the whole world costs. That's because we're forgetting to put God first. Where is the love? Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Lord of mercy. Many people say we should blame the government for misleading the people they were elected to represent. Party affiliation sometimes bring discrimination. If you're not back in the winning party, then you are plagued with skullduggery. But when all that goodness gone, I wake up. The good things I used to see suddenly stop. And when all my happiness walk right through that door, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat no more. No, cause when I look around and see how people killing people, most young people of today in grave jail or in trouble. Who's supposed to bury we is we burying them. So you see how all my goodness and all my happiness end like the whole world costs. That's because we're forgetting to put God first. When all that goodness gone, I wake up. The good things I used to see suddenly stop. And when all that happiness walk right through that door, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep no more. No, cause when I look around and see how people killing people, most young people up today in grave jail or in trouble. Who's supposed to bury we is we burying them. So you see how all my goodness and all my happiness end like the whole world costs. That's because we're forgetting to put God first.
Yes, that's the song of the man Mighty Pat, King Pat, out of the Canary area there of St. Kitts Nevis, by the way of St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And that is a big track. Forget to put God first. I hope those folks in our little island there, our Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, and most of our sister islands are listening to let God take the handle and lead us in the right direction. Good. I want to say a quick good evening to a few folks here before I get over to Mr. Daly, which we're going to have a lovely chit chat this evening. Good evening, D. Nicey D. Queely, how are you doing? Good evening. Loretta Clark Queely, how are you doing? Good evening. Gemini Nisbet, how about Delicious Nicholas Brown? Lavinston Brown, how are you doing? Loretta Clark, Kelvin Wilkin, G. Williams, how you doing? Skeet, my boy there, brother X-Man. Harris, how you doing? I understand you got some big tracks coming as well for the Virgin Islands Carnival. Look forward to get those things to bust some release. Want to say good afternoon to Sister Beverly Morrishaw about Gwyneth Morrishaw. How you doing? My baby girl, how are you doing? Sister Cora Bennett, Tracy Jeffers, Tracy Powell. How about Ann Farrell Smith? How are you guys doing? My sister there, Sister Cicely Brown. How are you doing? Sister Naomi Ward. How about Sister Hazel Claxton, the man Gene Sider? How about Twiller, the man Denny? Sister Diff Basu, De Francis, how are you guys doing? Elvin Ellie, the man Alvin Brown. Sherlyn Jeffords. Visha, how are you doing? Celine Tobias, how are you guys doing there? Mr. Ivor Henry, how are you doing, Brother Henry? Everything good with you? The man there, Eustace Hendrickson, Sandra Thompson. How about the man there, Everson Harris over there in the Toronto area? The man, Thaddeus Deposwa. How things going with you guys? The man, Curtis Cook, the man, Ike. How about D. Matthew? How are you doing? Everything all right? Joan Matthews, how are you doing? Dorothy Allen, how are you doing? My mascot, Sister Rosita Pontin. Wow, running out of time to call these names. Evan Jeffords, the man Julian Pemberton, Aston Williams. How about Sharon Smitten there? Also the girl there, Fiona. How are you doing? How is Brother John, the mighty monarch? Brother Nisbet, how are you doing? Lavi, Delicious Lavi, how are you doing? Livy L. Brown, how are you doing? Everything good with you? We're going to get back to some of the other names later, but for now, Loretta Wharton, how are you doing? Everything good with you? Clayton Davis, Pearl Francis. How about my girl there, Marcia? Marcia Saran, how are you doing? Maurice Saran, how are you doing? Ruby Walters. Brother Daily, tap your screen to open your mic. A whole bunch of folks is online there, can't keep up with the screen this afternoon. Tap the screen, just tap your screen and tap your mic there. I see you turn off you turn your mic around, you turn your phone around again. You have to get it back. Open your mic, tap your screen up. Okay, turn your phone. Got you, turn. Right, you're doing good, you're doing good. Good afternoon, my brother, how are you doing?
I am well. I'm well. Thank you for the invitation once again.
Yeah.
And the names you're calling out this evening, they are regulars on all the talk shows that we host here on Nevis, on Tell Mayo and Target. Most of the names you called. So a special welcome to them all. And of course, my family up there in the States who are also watching, Twilla and Denny. I wish them special good evening this evening.
Yeah, definitely. Move your camera to the left a little, get a little more of your face into the picture, into the camera. I wanted to see you. Look, you're well sharp up today. That's the suit you left back. The suit left back from the 50, the classic 50, or whatever you did there last week.
It's an old shirt. My brother always brings down clothes for me. So whatever he brings, I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you look lovely. You look lovely. Camera look clean tonight. Well, Brother Daly, we have a lot to talk about. Whether Carlisle reach soon or not, we have a lot to talk about until he gets here. I understand he went to get some cricketers that are visiting. I think it's Atlanta they're visiting from.
Yes.
All right.
And you also apologize for the absence of Tulu. I know you extended an invitation to him, but he had some issues, health issues that had him hospitalized on Monday. So
wow.
He's at home recuperating. And so we will continue to pray for his full recovery.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that keep us updated on Tulu, because over the last couple of days, we're hearing about accidents and deaths and stuff like that. And while we're on the topic, I believe my cousin should be joining me at some point this evening. Over the weekend, I think you guys might have seen a video going viral about a vehicle that ran over the waterfront in St. Thomas.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And there was some young men that jumped into the ocean to save the passengers of that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I found out, I think Sunday or Monday, that one of those, well, Monday actually, because I cited the Daily News when I saw Callan Bonnier is one of the persons that was awarded for his erratic moves. And I realized it's my cousin. I don't know if you can recall some months back, I had a gentleman here who was running for governor of the Virgin Islands, Kent Bernier.
Right.
That is his grandson. And like I tell people, you cannot plan these things. Ain't no way you can make up these stories, because Kent was here bidding for governor of the Virgin Islands. He dropped short with that bid. And then about 2 Sundays ago, his son was in a boating accident. He's currently in Florida undergoing surgery and medical treatment. Well, that young kid that saved those passengers, one of the kids that saved those passengers, that vehicle went into the water there, is the gentleman, my cousin that had the boating accident, is his son that actually jumped into the water to save these kids. So
what that tells you, public service never ends.
that's the thing, you know. So I know he's in school and he should be getting home shortly. So once he gets home in a reasonable time, he should be joining us to give us his experience of all of that. Because when I look at the video and see these folks running across to the area and just taking off the clothes and jump into the water without thinking, I mean, ain't no guarantee you will survive. I think we had an incident, more than one incident actually, where folks jump into the water there in St. Kitts to save or help with whatever, and never made it back alive. So when you take those moves by jumping into the ocean, you know, guarantee you're coming back out alive. So,
But I think most people do that without even thinking that of their own safety.
yeah,
It's just something that they need to do to help, and sometimes it costs you your own life.
that is true. So I would love to talk to my cousin there to see what is going on. But Brother Daly, I am happy to have you here, and there's so much to talk about in the island of Nevis. Let me give you a quick update, and then we could speak about your classy at 50 and whatever else we could talk about in Nevis. And we want to talk about the recent strikeout matter and stuff like that. And as I said to people, I had the Prime Minister here on Saturday. I had the AG here sometime. We have a right to give our opinion. Doesn't mean our opinion have to be a fighting thing. We see things differently. We have different information, and we hopefully educate each other based on the information that we have. I know you are there on the ground in Nevis, so I'm pretty sure you got much solid information than I do. So I look forward to having that conversation with you. But from my end here, the Prime Minister came on Saturday. Again, thanks to him for making the time. My internet was acting up. My computer was acting up. It was a whole mess. I want to thank the man, Elman Harley, the Harleys, for allowing me to utilize their internet. And what is amazing is that after I went and used his internet on Saturday, he called me today wanting if I have internet issues because his internet is down as well.
Maybe you have a virus.
So something is going on. But I want to thank my engineer, Brother Ike, for taking the time out and reloading my computer, checking the internet, and put everything together. So hopefully we'll be good for now, for some time. So where you want to start? Let's start with the Classy at 50, that event. I know you all had a good time there. How that went down last week?
I wasn't able to attend that event, but I watched the entire thing on YouTube. And I would have had conversation with Carlisle after the event and other persons who attended. And from all indications, it was a very successful event. But, you know, I listened to the speeches by Andy Roberts, which is, to me, he was one of my favorite deliverers on that evening. He spoke eloquently. He spoke of the meaning of knowing El Camino Willet, what it meant to him, the glass ceiling that he shattered as the first Leeward Islander to make it to the West Indies side. And so it was very inspirational to hear Andy, you know, speak so eloquently about his friend. And of course, you had presentation by others, including Carlisle Powell, and you know, who is the president of the Nevis Cricket Association, and others. But you know, I particularly like the intonation by our Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, who spoke, you know, almost waxingly about something big is coming down the pipeline for El Camino. And I do hope that, you know, that happens sooner than later. Persons really want to get their flowers before they pass to the great beyond. And so I have every faith in the Prime Minister that he would deliver on something special for a very special person here on Nevis.
Yeah, well, I definitely have confidence in the Prime Minister, and so far, I see him being very steady-handed governing and very precise. He's careful in leaking whatever good news he got going on out there. So,
Like leaking.
you know, remember not too long ago, we needed some plumbers in the Federation. There was a lot of leaking just a few months back. So,
I listened today on Freedom, and you could see he's a man in charge. He's you know, the man for the time, and I do appreciate the fact that he's so forthright in what his plans are. Many times politicians hide and duck, but he faced the issue, especially in his presentation about the issues at GNF. And he's not a shrinking lily. He's not going to duck from the issues. He acknowledged the issues, and he had the thing about acknowledging issues. You also have to inform the public how you intend to fix those challenges, which he did, and that is something that is, you know, his hallmark. I mean, he's a doctor, so he knows intimately, and he would have worked there at some point, so he would have known intimately the issues. But I especially like the fact that he has solutions presented in his presentation today.
you know, it's funny that you said that, Brother Daly, because after my conversation with him on Saturday, Gwyneth, amongst other people, asked me a question. And they said, we know that you have been trying to reach out to, prior to this government, the previous government, you have reached out to the Prime Minister, you have reached out to the Premier to have a conversation to sensitize the people, and successfully. They said, what a breath of fresh air to see a Prime Minister is willing to come to the people and speak openly and honestly. Because when you see someone is so willing to come and speak to the people, they have nothing to hide, there's nothing to lie about. Those who are afraid to come when you call upon them is because they know. They're not coming with truth, they're not coming with facts, and it's going to come back to haunt them. And it's unfortunate that we still have some of those type of politicians out there that want to mislead people and want to fool people. And we're going to get into that in a bit, you know, down the road, but let's focus on this thing. I really appreciate what Dr. Joe is doing, and I have confidence in him and his cabinet, because if you're going to start off wrong, lying to the people, then you're going to have a problem. I received several calls from some folks from Nevis. Surprisingly, I'm receiving a lot of calls from Nevis. Remember, the baby Brantis and nobody in Nevis knows. But I have been receiving several calls from folks in Nevis. And the problem is with those people that are calling, they're asking about the PAP, right? And I told them, well, did you speak to your Premier or your people in Nevis about that? And they're saying that when they went to Nevis, to whoever in Nevis, whichever department, they're telling them that the PAP, that closed off since December. Tell them, well, reach out to St. Kitts and see what's happening there. But then I heard a voice note, which I have here, I'm going to play it later, what the Premier is talking about from he was in the previous administration. The PAP, in his understanding, wasn't supposed to be something permanent, and people should not expect the PAP or whatever. But when you have these ministers of government that went through 2 years of COVID, did not lose one day of salary, 1 week of salary, 1 month of salary, they could say anything that they want to people that have not earned a dollar from January or February of 2020, March, when the COVID struck us. To present, they're still trying to survive. And I don't understand, people who does not understand the pain of people that are still struggling, something is wrong with them, because the millions that gone missing, the millions that been spent. I mean, what kind of heart you have as a Premier, that is going to be your response for people that is asking about the PAP, that it is nothing permanent and you're supposed to be going out there to look work. Have you heard that clip?
Yeah, of course. You know, he's quite condescending in his attitude towards people who are poor. But nothing he says surprises me anymore when it comes to how he feels about poor people. But you see, like you said, you know, when you're making the class of money that the ministers are making here on Nevis, all through the COVID, when persons were unemployed, then you could understand that they didn't lose a penny. I just want to share with the people here what the premier makes per year. Then this is just basic salary. This is not any other perks that he might get. So his basic salary is $164,520. And the junior ministers or ministers in general make $139,800 per year. So, you know, the average wage here in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis is about $3,000 per month. You can understand these guys are quadrupling and sextupling the income of a regular person here in St. Kitts Nevis. So they tend to be disconnected from the bread and butter issues that may affect normal working class people who are living paycheck to paycheck. And in between paycheck to paycheck, they have to borrow or beg to get something else to keep the households going. So these guys, they can say what they feel like because they're disconnected. They're not based in reality, in the struggles of ordinary people trying to make ends meet.
And that's where we have the breakdown. Because once we have those who have made it to the top on our backs, they forget how they get there and they're not even thinking that they're going to have to look back. The reverse to that is here we have a prime minister who understands the struggles. He's been struggling and he set out to say, listen, I am telling you up front, I don't wish to be here no more than 2 terms. I am here to help the people as best as I can and leave it for someone else to carry on. While these folks continue to do what they're doing. I have a clip here by this gentleman. I understand he's a pastor in Nevis, was a supporter, if not a supporter, of the CCM. Let me see if you're familiar with this voice. Stand by.
People have rejected Mark Brantley, and by right so. Mark is not doing anything for the poor man. Mark Brantley is not using his position as a premier to help the poor. Mark is going to do the same shit that he has done in the past. He recognized only the foreigners, bring them in to work in top positions, and the CCM people who support him, he overlooks them, marginalize them, sidetrack them. But Mark continue down that stupid road. You need to listen. You need to listen. You need to understand that you're not representing the poor, Mark Brantley. You're not representing the poor. All the mouth that you have, you're not representing the poor. And that is getting to people's spirit.
Devon Corn.
Okay, so you're familiar with that clip or that individual?
Yeah, that's Michael Dorr, a former financier and party supporter of the Premier and the CCM party. So what he's saying there, it would have taken a lot for him to come to that admission that they have failed to assist the poor people in this country. It is only fitting that he will come out and try to clear the air, and he did so quite eloquently in my estimation. It is clear from what we have seen here on the ground that he's absolutely right, and we've been saying it for a long time, that he's disconnected from the poor people. As a matter of fact, he abhors poor people, you know, and every chance he gets, you know, he spoke about in a very condescending manner, you know, single mothers, having children for deadbeat dads. I mean, it's just one level of insult after another. And rather than more persons like MD coming out and making a stand, I saw Valerie Thompson coming out. She lives, I think, down in St. Thomas, when the Premier attacked the Dr. Hodge, you know, and she came out, and she's another former staunch supporter of CCM. Clinton Swanston also came out in support of Dr. Hodge, and this, you know, calling down, this sniping, trying to belittle people's integrity. And he did that to me in the 2020 campaign, accused me of all sorts of things that I mean, it's just shocking how far he'll go to try to destroy anybody who speaks against him, whether it's for his better benefit or not.
You know, it's really amazing though, Brother Daly, because I'm pretty sure I'm no stranger to you, but I'm pretty sure you realize that I got into the Nevis politics late and being more open, speaking about it, not because I have anything to benefit out of the Nevis politics, but because during my Get Rid of Them campaign, I realized that all of them, the song was, you know, we had a chorus to get rid of all of them, you know. I don't know, I know what happened in Nevis, but some of them still there. And some people are busy.
Let me ask a question, DJ Morrishaw. Let me ask a question. I mean, we played the Get Rid of Them song clip on our shows and Tell Me on Target. We, you know, every chance we get, we would sing it. But since the election, the conclusion of the election on August 5th, you know, the Get Rid of Them seem to only focus in on PAM and PLP. You know, there seemed to be a seismic shift in opinions that the Get Rid of Them was only for the Sinkits part, not the Nevis part. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, as I said before, I know we all have difference in opinion, and it would appear that way. And I can see it coming from your end, because some of the laughy things are going on in Parliament. I got a problem with it, you know. Because if you listen to these guys talking in Parliament, you would think that there wasn't there in the previous administration.
Exactly.
You know, and the bottom line is, my cousin dear Sister Joy Clark, do remind them sometime that
she mincing words. I love her directness. And one time I know in the bill debating the anti-corruption bill, I mean, she came at Brantley so hard. He said she bruised him, you know, but he needed to get some more bruising because Joel is on the right track. You know, he needs bruising for all of his unethical, nasty behavior. And people in Sinkits and Nevis must recognize the fact that he bragged openly about the man who, you know, taking full credit for bringing down that the Labour administration in 2015. People must not forget these things. I listened to a tape today with Dr. Douglas reminding us, I mean, it's an old tape, but he's reminding us of the condescending, arrogant, bullheaded attitude of the Premier of Nevis. And I put it on my Facebook feed for persons to understand that this man here called Mark Brantley is not to be trusted. He is a pariah on good sensibilities. You know, anything of integrity and fairness or truthfulness, he's anti, you understand? And when I heard the chorus in Parliament when they debated the anti-corruption bill, when he said nothing will change, I was really moved. I got goosebumps when in the background, you could hear almost in unison. You could hear Congressman's voice. You heard Dr. Joel Clark's voice. You heard Jeffrey Hanley's voice. We will see. We will see. And so I'm holding the cabinet of Dr. Drew, not only Dr. Drew himself, because he has an extremely strong cabinet. And so I'm hoping that great things will come from it. And I know that if he strays left or right, there are persons in that cabinet who will put him back on the right path with no equivocation.
You know something, I'm happy that you brought up that topic, because I myself, when I'm here listening to them and he's talking about nothing will change, the reason he could say that is because from experience, nothing have changed. He has managed to get away with all this shit over the last 7 years.
Yep.
And as you said, they wanted to continue the mismanagement of the country. Remember, if we're going to start about history, let's not forget that his mandate and his mantra was he's bringing down all three from Nevis, and the PAM party in which he partnered with in the campaign was going to take 3 and they're going to form the government, you know. And Douglas was supposed to be in retirement permanently. Right?
We would have been destroyed. We
would have been destroyed. And that was what he was doing. So when you're going to tell me, and this is why I said to people, I do not believe the fake news I'm hearing on the street by the daily. When you have someone as sensible as an AG that I know Garth Winkin, I could say now personally. I call him a St. Paul's man. Who wants to hear from tongue is up to them. At St. Paul's, the mother go up, and there he was before they take him to town, right? And we people in St. Paul's, we are very fear-minded. We might be strong-headed, but we are very fair people. And I don't think that Brother Gart Wilkin will get into the cahoots to help out anyone, whether in NRP, CCM, or the Labour Party, in hoodwinking the citizens of St. Kitts Nevis, right? And when the baby Brantley think nothing will change, nothing changed, because remember what the Prime Minister then said when he was pulled up for whatever went on to resign. He said not one of them could hold a candle to him, right? That was the dead administration. Do you think they can come to this administration now with that nonsense? Remember, we didn't have the good governance agenda and the freedom of information law passed as yet. So a lot of things had to go through certain protocols and criteria. These things are now enacted. Once they go into law, all of these things we are questioning about the millions of dollars that went across to the NIA and the money spent on the hospital wing. Those things are going to be freedom of information. They can't hide it anymore. No amount of hack could hide that.
You know what's very disturbing to me? When I listened to the Premier's presentation in Parliament regarding the anti-corruption bill, and he took his time to go through the litany of bills. He cited the anti-corruption bill, the integrity in public life bill, the freedom of information bill, and he referred to them. He referred to them, DJ Morrishaw, as a checklist of legislation to appease those who are looking in, meaning, of course, donor countries and others of interest. When a premier of a country, when a leader of a country with great power, refer to legislation simply as a checklist, meaning that he has no intention of abiding by those pieces of legislation to guide and to prevent corruption and graft and cronyism. He has no intention of abiding by them, because the mere fact you use the word checklist, we would have expected, or anybody would have expected, a leader to say, listen, we are enabling these pieces of legislation to protect the public from any misfeasance or malfeasance in public office, to make sure that our officers are operating and abiding by the laws of the country. But for him, no, it's a checklist, no intention. And when the Integrity in Public Life Bill came up, the ordinance was passed in Nevis in 2018, I believe. We assumed that it was a carbon copy of the Integrity in Public Life Bill that was passed in 2013 in the Federal Parliament, not knowing until there was a request for investigation in the Spencer Brand matter that the investigative powers of the Integrity in Public Life commissioners was removed. And we only learned that from the commissioner, the chairman of the commission himself, that they have no investigative powers. And when we went back to check on that piece of legislation, indeed, it had been altered. And so these guys have no intention, DJ Morrishaw, of abiding by the same laws they passed in Parliament to regulate themselves.
The situation is, like I said, you have certain information on your end that I don't have. But one thing I know is that I will not be misled. And 6 weeks from the date of that legislation, I heard the AG says that they're going to take 6 weeks to educate the public and sensitize the public before things start going into effect. And I'm waiting. I might be the very first one requesting this information. So at that time, I might be able to respond to your statement that you just made, because I cannot see the song and a dance that went on in Parliament with this matter. And at the end of the day, they will not be enforced. Remember, we're talking about some $20+ million gone missing from the development bank. You know? You're telling me that guy down the drain, nothing going to work out with that, nothing goes so? We're talking about some millions, 14 million spent to manage dirt over on the aquifer where they should have been building a high school. You want to tell me that going to go down the road, nothing for that? You got several millions unaccountable for that blue building up on Wellington Road. You're going to tell me that is going to go so? There's some underhanded things that took place with the solar farm business that need investigating. The second cruise pier, that is still unanswered questions. You're telling me them things that's going to happen to them, that's your belief?
Well, the thing is this: the proof is always in the pudding, eh? And I'm grateful that the Drew administration has gone back and revisited the Integrity in Public Life Bill and make the necessary amendments to make it waterproof, or at least waterproof as possible. Now, as indicated by the move of the bill, of course, the federal bill takes precedence over any ordinance on Nevis. So we're now free. Once those bills are gazetted, we are now free on Nevis to write, as a matter of inquiry, to the Integrity in Public Life St. Kitts for them to investigate the matters here on Nevis. And the first matter, of course, one of the first matters must be the hospital wing. It must be investigated. How the contracts were awarded, was their tendering process, who, on what grounds were these matters of design, how did Spencer Brand, who is an architect or a draftsman for residential homes, be brought into the conversation about designing a state-of-the-art hospital expansion? I mean, all of these here are critical pieces of information that needs to be formatted, people need answers, because we're talking about millions and millions of dollars of taxpayers' money.
Well, you just answered the question, the point I was getting to there. You spoke about what happened in the past in Nevis, and then you went and speak on the federal bill. And I think that's what takes precedence, and that's what I'm looking forward to. You ever hear the saying that you until they catch it, or the moon until the sun comes, whatever the case might be? I think the sun coming out on this one.
Well, let me say something about the Freedom of Information Bill. God, that was passed since 2018. Now, I was a former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. Therefore, I was the chief technician, chief secretary, financial secretary of that particular ministry. Any information or any capital project passes through that ministry, that office. When the premier is saying for us for the last 5 years, since that bill passed in our local cabinet, local parliament here in Nevis, that he is yet to identify appropriate persons within the various ministries to be the conduits or conveyors of information requested. I find it, I mean, that is the most stupid comment anybody could make, because the only person or persons within the ministry that have full knowledge of all expenditures, whether it's from a department level or ministry level, will be the permanent secretary. So what is so hard in identifying? There are 6 or 7 permanent secretaries who can be the conveyors of public requests or the conduits of public requests. You know, this is not rocket science, DJ Morrishaw. These are standard operating procedures for information. If I'm doing a project at New River, I should have all the documentation as to cost of the project, how long it took, what were the difficulties, what were the challenges. I should have that in a report on each project. Why is it that I can't get a report from Public Works about the expenditure for Browning Road or Hanley's Road or the Penny's Road or whatever road project? Why is it that I can't get it up-to-date report up to now on the hospital expansion project or the OLEPA project or the Newcastle Police Station project? Why is it all of this information are hidden from the public? Now we are moving into a new dimension at the airport, Advanced Aiming International. I'm hearing that a contract has already been awarded to a company to do the work. And I'm saying, well, there hasn't been any EIA, there hasn't been any consultation with the public. How is these things moving so quickly and we in Nevis are left unaware? These are kind of things that a Freedom of Information Bill must become commissioned and operationalized if we're going to prevent the kind of abuse of power these guys are now enjoying.
Yeah, and that is true, because at the end of the day, I think they were speaking about how these contracts are awarded. And that's going to be something that's going to be dealt with in the new Freedom of Information Act as well.
Mm.
Okay. All right. I see my cousin is online here, Brother Daly. So stand by. Tap your screen and open your mic. Okay. Good evening. You can hear me?
Yeah, good evening, good evening, good evening.
How are you doing? I have Brother Mr. Kelvin Daly online. So good evening to Kelvin.
Good evening, Mr. Kelvin.
Good evening, young man.
Okay,
I saw you being commended online with your certificate. Well done.
Thank you.
You know, we always appreciate acts of kindness, even though you put yourself in danger. And so my hat is off to you, even though I'm not wearing one. But very good. I mean, it speaks to your upbringing, it speaks to your family's strength, it speaks to your strength to be able to do such a selfless act. And the whole world is appreciating it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kellen, I'm your cousin Jeffroy, aka DJ Morrishaw. First time you're meeting me, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is how we meet. Just imagine, eh? We have to do better than this. Anyway, I know that you might be new to this platform. So what we're gonna do is that just introduce yourself, your name and everything, a quick synopsis of you go to school, your age and stuff like that. And then we'll get into the conversation.
All right, no problem. Good evening, everyone. My name is Killen Jeremiah. I'm 18 years old. I go to Charlotte, Somalia. I'm 12th grade, and that's all of me right there.
Okay. Just about 2 weeks ago, we heard of the incident of your dad. We find out now that had a boating accident. Was you in that area with him during that accident?
Yes, me and my little brother, we was at the incident. She was going out to have a little fun with the boat, and it went south.
Okay, it flipped, and God saved him. So okay, now a week later, an incident happened on St. Thomas. A vehicle went over in the waters from waterfront, and you was one of the individuals that assisted in the rescue. So tell us about that. How did that come about?
Yes, it was alarm. We was heading home, and when we was heading home, a car came past the street flying, and I told my friend if he saw it, and my friend said no. So we stopped the car and then tell him, look, and when he saw it, we run out the car. To my friend Dylan Hodge, the other guy.
Yeah.
And when we came out, we started taking off our clothes and stuff, and we reacted fast. So she jumped in the water, trying to get the boys out, the men out of the car, trying to unbuckle the seatbelts and stuff. So when he went in the car, the door closed behind of him. So when the door closed behind of him, I jumped in and I was opening the door. He was trying to go through the trunk, too much water coming into the trunk and stuff. So when I opened the door, I put my hand in and I get to pull the one guy out, the other fella out, and my friend out. And we get him back to the shore, to the dock.
You know, it's funny that you said that. I was just saying to Kelvin a while ago that I know of several, maybe one or two people recently in St. Kitts that jump into the water to either save someone or to pick something up that fell overboard and did not survive. They lost their lives. When you guys driving down the road and see the vehicle heading that way, is it normal for you to stop to check on these things? How that went about?
To be honest, when I really thought about the situation at the moment and when I was there, the first thing that came to my mind was my dad, because like I wouldn't know how somebody would feel if they lose somebody to the water. And watching my father through that incident, it was really hurtful for me. So it's like I would like somebody to do the same for me, like what I would do for them, basically.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and that is one of the concerns I had. How did it affect you, knowing that you just went through a situation with your dad a week earlier, and now you are risking your life to save someone else? And it makes sense, and we really appreciate you. I mean, you have a whole bunch of family online all over the world. You know, we have Bunnies in Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Kitts, Stacia, St. Bart's, New York, England, all over the place. So they're going to be happy that they finally get to see you. As a matter of fact, when you get to meet my son, you will realize that you and him has the same features. He just have a little more body than you. So you can see the bloodline. You're in 12th grade in Charlotte Amalie High in St. Thomas. You have any particular what do they call it? Are you into the boating thing there? Or do you want to be a Simmons? What you want to do with that?
I really want to be really trying to take foot in my father's footsteps. Yes, I'm gonna be in the boarding district and stuff. I'm really trying. I'm one of the 15 Virgin Islands right now who got accepted to a boarding camp in the Virgin Islands, and I know I'm trying to go to the Coast Guard too. So all of that plays in my life also. Yeah.
Well, you're already working as a Coast Guard. You saved life already, and you're not even a Coast Guard as yet. That's great. You must be a very good swimmer for you to be jumping over into that water.
Yeah, I really am. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. You have any idea how many feet of water that might have been at the waterfront there?
It was 12 feet from when they did the diagnostics and how they look at it. It was 12 feet.
Okay, 12 feet. Okay, so it's good that it's not one person that went for that rescue, because as you just explained, if it was just one individual went for that rescue and that door lock up on them, then they too will become a casualty. So it's good that you guys was there as a team. All right. Well, I see you guys getting certificates and stuff. I hope the government of the Virgin Islands, with all the money that the US government send there, understand that you all need some money to advance your career in the boating industry, and they invest some money not only in the schools but in you guys to teach other young kids to have the instinct that you guys have. As a matter of fact, I know that my folks in St. Kitts, the government minister and those guys, listen to this program. So I would ask them to invite you across to St. Kitts Nevis to have a conversation with our students in school, because you're an example for our kids at home. What do you think about that, Brother Daly?
I think it's a wonderful idea. Kids listen to kids, and they always, I encourage, and if he's the kind of role model that I think can bring some positive results.
Yeah, definitely.
And I agree with the fact that, you know, a scholarship is in line.
Yeah, they should get some kind of scholarship to advance themselves in that stuff, because I know my family is a fishing family. I tell people that all the time, that how I was brought up. I just happen to be one of those that cross over and went to do different things. But I am also a licensed fisherman and a registered fisherman in St. Kitts Nevis. So
no wonder we got to answer good. I got my license about 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. Mine is over 20 years. I grew up in the fishing industry with my grandfather and my uncle and stuff. Had a couple of boats in St. Kitts. One got damaged, but I'm still trying to help out folks in my community. And my cousin and I currently, Brother Ken Bernier, which is his grandfather, we are also in the process of getting into some business there in that area, trying to assist in the agriculture relief and the fishing industry in St. Kitts. So we have a lot going on. So I just want to say to you, cuz I'm very proud of you. And I hope that you continue to stay safe, stay out of trouble, and be the good that you can be. Is there anything you want to say to the folks online? You got thousands of people around the world listening to you.
Yes, I would love for everybody to pray for my father, and please, we have a GoFundMe my uncle made on Philip Bernier. He made a GoFundMe for my father, for we could raise some money for we could help him out for the surgery and stuff. So I would really mind, guys, help up my father fees on his GoFundMe, and everybody prays up.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I do not know if my cousin there, Kent Pam, is around. I would like them to put the information for the GoFundMe in this link in the thread, that folks can go there and utilize that to make whatever contribution they can make. And I'm pretty sure folks appreciate that you guys was able to save some lives and continue to do the good that you can do. Is Kent around that he can come and say hi to me? Or is he hiding?
No, he right there, man. He right there.
Bring him in the picture there. Bring him in there. Where he hiding from me? Brother Kent Bernier, senior.
Yeah, Brother Jeffroy, how are you?
Man, I'm good. Like you and I always say, we got some very good seed in our blood. Your grandson there did wonders for two individuals in the Virgin Islands, and I want to congratulate you guys for your continued hard work and trying to do the best for the community.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting because he didn't tell you, but I had him in St. Thomas Rescue, you see. Plus, his dad grew up with me, and we're boaters. We run a lot of boat races with the Caribbean. And what happened was unfortunate, but, you know, we, the beautiful thing is, I want to let the people know, and you may not be aware, getting them to Jackson Memorial, St. Kitts is right there too. Unknown to you, the trauma centers are important for the whole Caribbean because it didn't have to be boat. It could be motorcycle accident, car accident. So when I listened to you last week with Dr. Drew, you know, it's very important that the Caribbean come together as one, because with a trauma center, whether in St. Kitts, St. Thomas, it's very important because of the limited resources we have. So I'm gonna say to you and the public, my son was very fortunate. I just want to let them know that's his love. When I was growing up, I had Miss Hannikin. We go 150. We're in that business of boat racing. So it's something that just happened, and it happens to the best of us, you know? So what I was very fortunate is in the BVI, there was a vascular surgeon because he lost his whole limb in his hand. So he had to take veins out his leg to keep the hand together until we got him up to Jackson Memorial. So Dr. Miller in the BVI was the key to this whole thing. He worked 12 hours on my son. And that tells you if we had made it to St. Thomas, he would have lost his hand. So I have total respect for Mr. Miller. And I myself, we're gonna raise some fund for the BVI hospital. We're working on that as we speak, besides the damage. But it comes back to what I said, cause we all one people in the Caribbean. And it's important for me because I do a lot of financial work throughout the Caribbean. It's important that the people of the Caribbean come together, not the politicians that have their own self-interest. I talk about the people demand that we come together, not who is in charge, is what's best for the people in the community. So that's really what, you know, my job is working on. And as you can see right now, what concerns me is a ton load of seaweed is coming our way. And our number one economy is tourism. So our leaders have to come together and pool resources and find a way to protect our neighboring islands. We're all in this together. So that's what I preach to, you know, most of the politicians that I deal with. What's concerned me with the politicians, they're young, they don't have no experience, but they elected because whatever favoritism, but the structure and the blueprint that's needed for the Caribbean. And I'm gonna share with you, is no different than the blueprint that Muammar Gaddafi had for Africa. One Africa, one people. Now you got Russia, you have China, and everyone taking the resources out of Africa, and then our people again are suffering. And this is what concerned me with the Caribbean too. If we were coming together, we could have a trauma center for the Caribbean, for the people of the Caribbean, and we won't have to go to Miami. And that's what I respected Dr. Drew and yourself was talking about. Unknown to most of the people in the Caribbean, I was the one with a team that put together the first cancer center, cardiac center and cancer center in the US Virgin Islands. I financed $250 million to put a cancer center in St. Thomas to take care of the Caribbean and a cardiac center. So all the doctors from Howard and all the top Black universities would come and do the kidney transplant as well as the cardiac. So I'm saying to you, we have the ability to do it. If we can do everything for the cruise ship and the tourists, what about trying to do something in the mass for our people? And Jeffroy, that's why I ran for governor. I know we have the resources and the talent throughout the Caribbean. You take Guyana now. Guyana now, the UK say now Guyana don't need a visa now to go to Guyana. Why? Because of the wealth.
To the UK.
To the UK, yeah. So I'm sharing with you, these countries use our people. As long as it's wealth and enriching themselves, it's okay. But if once it has to do with our people, Jeffroy, that's the vision I have. My son is going to be okay, because spiritually, that's how we roll. My grandson is a reflection of me, like, you know, my father, Philip, and my great-grandfather. from St. Paul's and your family, Joe Bernard, which I never knew him. And, I have no problem. We're nomads, but we're doing everything to help our fellow man, Jeffroy. And that's where you are right now as well. So I'm reserved, and I just wish everyone in the Caribbean that's listening that as a people, we must come together despite the hardship and what has happened to us in the past, for us to survive visionary for the future of the Caribbean and the people. We must come together at one. We cannot be separated and let anyone from outside continue the same behavior, divide and conquer. It's time that our Caribbean leaders man up, as the young people will tell me. I'm learning a lot of new words from the young people. And that's why my grandson will keep me in check, tell me, Grandpa, you are right, you hardcore. But I say being hardcore sets the precedence for the infrastructure to sustain us. Without us trying to sustain ourselves, no one is going to come to save us. We have to save ourselves. So all I'm saying, Jeffroy, I appreciate the platform. And like I said, I stand down and spend time with my grandkids. My son is out now, so I have to take care of all the kids. It's no problem. But we did this when we had the big yard. We did this, we were tribal people. When one have to go to hunt, everybody stays home and take. It's the same thing with my father. He didn't get to raise me, but my grandmother raised me. But he went to England. He did the best he could. And that's the future. And we have to educate our young people, let them know how important it is that families stick together, will take care of each other. And that's where we are, Jeffroy. And I'm proud of you. And I always say that to you all the time. Although we might have met only 2 or 3 times because of my lifestyle, which is I'm always traveling.
Well, it's funny. The amount of times we met in person does not add up to everything you have done for me. Even though you're not around, you make sure whenever I come to the Virgin Islands that I'm taken care of.
Yes.
You make sure I had some place to stay and make sure I was taken care of. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I know the intention. I know your heart is good. And now I meet Pam, and I realize that Pam is a supporter as well and very supportive of you and the family. So I appreciate her. But
let me let Pam say hello. Pam, hello to Jeffroy. Come.
I'm gonna come in a bit. I wanted Mr. Daly to understand who you are. Brother Daly, this is my cousin Ken Bonnier. His father and my grandfather are brothers from St. Paul, St. Kitts. But he was born in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. And as you can hear, a lot of our talent is outside of St. Kitts Nevis that we can really use in our federation there, right? So
my father lived in St. Croix. My brother Hugh lives in St. Croix. I spent all my summers in St. Croix, and I had a brother living in St. Thomas, so I spent a lot of summers there too. So we're one people, like the gentleman said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, when I explained to everyone that my father was the accountant of the first hotel here, VI Hotel, and that's how Tobias got here and Farrakhan got here. Farrakhan's mother is from St. Kitts. And he used to sing at the hotel. We used to call him Mr. Charming. So a lot of St. Kitts movement, I was always, because I do all the financial work. My father's an accountant. I'm an accountant. My sister's an accountant. So I traveled throughout the world. My mother was Jimmy Carter and Robinson Carter cook. My mother actually did a lot of cooking for most of the congressmen and presidents. The ambassador to Haiti, who was Henry Timmerman, I was his financial advisor. So it tells you Kissinger and most of these guys in Washington, that's who I'm a lobbyist. So anything that needs to be done for the islands, whether infrastructure, national security, climate change, that's the type of work I do, but we don't say much. I was Reagan, actually financial from Mexico to Chile. So there's a lot of things we do to help our neighbors in Panama, in Venezuela. Our Venezuela issue should not have been an issue because the future under the Reagan model was the third border. Our job was to create economic development to Panama, Venezuela, and throughout Brazil. And our job was to bring people to come as tourists and investors, not as immigrants. So it has to be a new world order. And the problem I'm having, why leave China and Russia because of capitalism coming to Latin America when America have the resources and means to take care of the whole of Latin America? We're the same people with Spaniards. So along the way, we've lost the true patriots of this country. And hopefully Jeffroy. That's a matter of me assisting my homeland, which is St. Kitts. My mother is from Tortola. So I do what I have to do, and I'm available, like I said, to the Prime Minister, Terence Drew, and his cabinet and his ministers. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have your own diasporas here sitting, waiting. We have Quad Kirky, which is your cousin, Loris Mills. She worked with me for 10 years under Governor Turnbull administration. I actually did the first credit rating for the government of the U.S. Virgin Islands, so AAA rating. So Kirky and myself, she's from St. Kitts. The Mills are something, Ira Mills, and people want to know, I go back to Nevis. My stepmother had owned Nelson Spring and Nevis, which was the Stephen, Ione, and we know Ken Hobson and them. I used to run around with Ken Hobson in a little minimo. When the stuff come from St. Kitts, I take the stuff out the boat and help out with the bakery. So I'm not foreign. I just don't like to sit too much. Ricky Skerritt actually lived with me when he went to the university. Stacey Hobson and I went to Hampton together, the architect. So I'm closer than people think about St. Kitts.
You know something, Kent, I'm listening to you speaking, and the problem that we have had, I believe there's going to be a shift in that attitude under this new administration. But over the years, I have heard government after government say, you guys that travel out and gain experience overseas to bring it back home and try and help us advance our country. But when you go back with your information and try to give advice, they look at you as foreign. No matter how much good information you bring in, they prefer to hear it from a different national than from their own. When their own has a better understanding and a better outlook for the country, because we have both experiences, they prefer to take it from a foreign. Back in the days, and I'm not being prejudiced here, but if I go to the bank and ask for a loan and I have a job, I cannot get it. A white man could come from any place, never had a job, he's a cook, put on a short khaki pants and a briefcase and walk into a bank in St. Kitts Nevis and get a loan very easily. And that is the mentality we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it's still there, and we need to do away with it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when I came to TDC, I tell Mr. King, our young people ain't gonna be no bottling company, washing no bottles. You get that automated. Our young men at the time were using the foot pedal to wash the bottles. I tell Mr. King, no man, you got to modernize this thing. That's not ideal. So I know the emphasis of what St. Kitts is going through. A lot of people don't know my job in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Anything, I'm certified. I'm a public service company. Water, power, infrastructure, financing. We can take that country and restructure it to meet the needs of the people. That's what's missing on all our Caribbean islands. Okay, we need to stand down and take care of our people, cause.
You know the problem with
that's what's
that
lacking in this new world order. Every country else, no.
Your call is breaking up, but you know what? One of the problem is in that area there with some of the previous administration is the kickbacks. Not what's best for the country, but what's best for them. If you come with something good and you cannot tell them how much you're going to give them as a kickback, what you're saying don't mean nothing to them.
Well, let me share something with you. I inherited that with Governor Turnbull when I got in. And when I showed the same guys that wanted a kickback, I showed them if you function properly, you don't need kickback. You will be a multiplier effect, because if our people are comfortable, you make more money. So that behavior comes from lack of knowledge and education and selfishness and greed from the beginning of time. So I appreciate what you're saying. The right person at the helm, Dr. Terence Drew, have the right concept. He just have to have the right type of people around him that have the same desire. Once you have that position in your leadership and have the people around you, God have a way of taking care. The meek shall inherit the earth, brother Morrishaw. That's how I look at life.
Definitely. Brother Daly, anything else you want to say to Ken before he go? Because I want to say hello to my girl, Pam. Where's Pam?
Pam! She's coming.
The name you mentioned, the Hobsons and the owners of Nelson Spring, these are our people, these are neighbors and friends. And so indeed, we are one people and we need to listen to each other more. I think the problem with the politicians these days, they tend to be know-it-all. They know every single thing. They're masters of everything, and they end up screwing up everything. And so if we were to spend the time trying to research who we are as a people and try to invite persons who have the dual experience of being, friends of the soil and expertise and having expertise in what they do, as gentleman here definitely has. I think we have enough resources out there, whether you're in North America or in the Caribbean, in the region, to harness that power. I would like to see our governments do similar things like Ronald Reagan did or Biden did. Form an economic council, asking people with expertise to have the input in the direction the country needs to go for maximum development. These politicians, they need to be more modest in what they don't know. Surround yourself with people who do know and take their advice, and everything that the gentleman said will fall into place. But we here on Nevis, for example, we have a premier who knows everything. He's a man unto himself. He does not listen to his cabinet colleagues. He gives them directions and they follow blindly. And then we end up in situations that we are now, where projects are overpriced, overrun, and you just can't understand what happened. And so what starts wrong normally ends up wrong. And so I would ask even, Dr. Drew, I know he has a good team around him already, but expand that team to include, members who are not part of his cabinet, to have his economic council going, economic and development council going. And so inputs can be had across the region and across the diaspora of persons interested in making sure that Nevis and St. Kitts is on the right footing.
Brother Daly, it's good to hear you make that statement, because I was speaking to someone over the weekend from Tobago, and I had to break down to them what's happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. As Ken is aware, we had the Get Rid of Them campaign a couple months back prior to the change of this new government. And there was a tri-party involved. It was the People's Action Movement with PAM, led by Sean Richards, the People's Labour Party, the PLP, led by the former HAG, Timothy Harris, and the CCM out of Nevis, led by Mark Brantley, Baby Brantley. And we wanted to get rid of them because of the mess they had the country in for 7 years. The government of St. Kitts Nevis changed on the 6th of August. Election was on the 5th, and by the 6th, we had a new prime minister swearing. And the problem continues, and people are confused, because though we might have resolved the problem in St. Kitts, we still have the issue in Nevis that is haunting us. And folks are confused and are trying to figure out how we're going to resolve this issue. So we are on a balanced scale right now, where folks are still trying to tie the corruption into the new Labour administration, which is have nothing to do with it. Dr. Drew is trying his best to make sure that things get done right. There's a lot of unfinished business in Nevis. So we're going to have a little belly pain for another couple of months until we get these problems resolved. But Nevis is hurting badly. And that's what people need to understand.
There must be a dual development track. You can't have things taking off and Nevis lagging so far behind. We've had that in our history before, when St. Kitts was the metropole of everything that you needed done. If you wanted a birth certificate, you had to go to St. Kitts. You want anything, medicines, you had to go to St. Kitts. During that period of time, a lot of Nevisians migrated to St. Kitts. A lot of my aunts moved to St. Kitts to find work. One became a seamstress, others housewives. I could almost hazard a guess that more than probably 40% of St. Kitts has some ties to Nevis. So nobody on St. Kitts, I would think, would want to see this lopsided development agenda where St. Kitts is taking off and Nevis is lagging behind. We all one people. And so I know the issue with Nevis being its own government in a lot of areas, but it's clear to see that the agenda on Nevis is not about development. Clearly, it is not about development. It's about self-enrichment, corruption, malfeasance in public office. That is their mantra. They do things half-heartedly because they have to show some evidence that something is happening. And then they end up making a mess of it. How do you count Jeffrey, how do you account for the fact that between 2015 and 2022, the remittances from the federal government total $500 million for a population of 12,000 people? On top of that, you had recurrent revenue, almost $1 billion between those years. On top of that, the highest the largest debt situation we have had on Nevis, $525 million in debt. How do you account for this sort of malfeasance in public office? We are only almost $2 billion have simply vanished into thin air. And people are saying, well, what's happening in Nevis? Where did all this money go? Who had this? Who can account for all this money? So, you know, with that sort of income, you have thought Nevis, every house in Nevis should have a golden toilet. People should be pissing in golden toilets because of the money that's spent in this economy. But you're not feeling it, you're not seeing it. So where is it? That's the big question that has to be answered.
You know something, Brother Daly, as you speak there, I'm reflecting. At my young, tender age, I can recall not too long ago when NRP was in power, there was a bid to get geothermal going. And the current premier and the CCM folks was talking about earthquakes. The geothermal gonna cause earthquake and was against the geothermal project. Today, they are trying to be the champion of the geothermal. I can recall while St. Paul's had 60% of its people came down from Nevis to St. Kitts and never went back home, some of them my family. I was hearing the call by the same party and the same premier for secession. But now, I'm seeing the hug up and the kiss up and the love up like nothing ever happened. Once it's benefiting them. So I understand where you're coming from, you know, brother. But we have to find a way to reach the masses. Because as my cousin Ken said, the politicians ain't gonna do it. They will not do it for us. We as a people gonna have to find a way to bridge that gap.
The thing about it is that the returns for the local Nevis Assembly elections is telling us a very hopeful story. That persons on the ground here in Nevis and Nevisians in the diaspora have voted with their fingers. They have decided they do not want this administration of Mark Bentley. If it wasn't for the importation of these rent-a-crowd voters from the Dominican Republic, we wouldn't be having this conversation now because he would have been gone. He would have been gone. The CCM would have been rid from Nevis forever. But you see, I'm telling you something. You know, God works in mysterious ways, and so we have to be patient. But I'm telling you, Jeffrey, he has lost whatever credibility he had. People are not listening to him blindly like before. Of course, you're going to have the persons who are drinking.
You close your mic, Daily. You tap your mic. Tap your screen, open your mic. You close your mic.
The party. They don't see any way out. They feel like they're going to be victimized by NRP incoming administration. But history has shown, even after 14 years in the wilderness, from 1992 to 2006, the incoming NRP government did no such thing to victimize anybody. And so I don't know where this fear is. I think it's because they themselves were part of the victimizing of NRP when we lost in 2013. So they feel somehow that it's going to be payback. We don't have that in our bloodstream. We don't have that in our DNA. We do not go after single mothers, firing them because they support a party. People are free and to say what they feel like. You never heard Mr. Parry once say, you know, go home because you insulted me, or stand up when I come into a room, or have a chauffeur-driven limousine, or, you know, to have 24-hour bodyguards. Mr. Parry, even today, walks down Main Street without a care. The former premier of Nevis, Vance Emery, also walked down Nevis without a care. Sim Daniel lived among the people without a care. How is it this one man feels so fearful for his life? Come on. It is a reflection of the evilness he has done to people, and therefore he feels that somebody's going to pay him back. But don't look for it from Division NRP support. We're not of that type.
The funny thing about life is the situation on the ground in Nevis, as I've said time and time again, people are saying it, and I don't take it as a joke. They're saying the people in Nevis like it so. I was on the ground in Nevis, and the people in Nevis do not like it so.
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly.
I witnessed it for myself. So when people are going to say that, it is not so. I'm going to play a quick clip here. Ken, you have to, and are you going to hang with us for a bit? Your mic is closed, Ken. Tap your screen up in your mic. Tap your screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to excuse myself because I got to deal with the young ones. Okay,
No,
but
no problem.
time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming, and thank Pamela for me for giving my cousin the opportunity to use her device to join us. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Okay, guy, be good.
All right. I put the girl for me in the link, eh?
Okay, all right,
So,
great.
All right, so it's there.
Right.
Yeah, but Daily, there's a clip here. Let me see if I can find it. Where I was speaking about earlier that our loving premier, what he's telling the people now who is crying out for help with the PAP.
New government took over in St. Kitts, Nevis, the Labour Party led by Prime Minister Drew, in August of 2022. They've been there now roughly 8 months, and they said that they would reform certain programs, and one of those programs was the PAP, Poverty Alleviation Program. Now, I was part of the government, Team Unity government, led by Dr. Timothy Harris, that introduced the PAP program. And I'm here today to say that I never understood that the PAP program was intended to be a permanent program. That was never my understanding as a member of that government. My understanding was that the PAP program, like many other programs that were introduced as a necessary response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which had wreaked havoc in terms of jobs, with so many of our people employed, in particular in the hospitality sector, restaurants, hotels, people who are home, taxi drivers, and we felt we needed to do something to assist. And so the formulation was done that households making $3,000, less than $3,000 a month, in the household, that they would get this $500 a month as a top-up. I never understood that to be a permanent program. It was, in my respectful view, as I understood it, a program that was designed to treat with the difficulty and the need of our people in an extremely difficult time that is a global pandemic. Now, we're coming out of the pandemic, and we're now seeking to look to growth, development, and to get the economy moving. My view is that as the economy starts to move, as we start to create more jobs, as people start to be able to go back to work, you should see the numbers on these social programs falling off. That's what should happen. The numbers should be falling off. And where you had 8 and 9 and 10,000, that should come down to 7 and to 5 and to 4 and to 2. It will never come down, I believe, to 0, because we will always have some people who need assistance. But we must not seek to treat these programs as if they are permanent programs, where in perpetuity a large number of our population expects to get free money from the government.
Yeah, Brother Daly, when I listen to that clip, it make me wonder what kind of premier, what kind of human being you guys have in Nevis State in that country. When I walk into the grocery store in Nevis, the cheapest you can get anything is in the Chinese store. And even those are expensive these days. You know what a dozen eggs cost back there? How far can your premier think $500 can go? $500 a month can go? How far that can go?
Well, let us go back a little bit and ask the question. You know, when the PAP was rolled out, did he make such announcements that this was not meant to be a permanent, that he intended to only have you on there until you found suitable employment to raise your income above 3,000 per household? Did all that was said? I don't think so. Why don't he tell the public how many persons that he personally would have intervened, on whose behalf he intervened here on Nevis, who under normal circumstances would not qualify for PAP, but because of interventions, they were considered. He's talking now from the other side of his mouth. But when he had the opportunity to do so in a meaningful way, he did nothing. He took full advantage of putting persons on the PAP for political gain. That's a fact. Because here on Nevis, we don't decide who goes on PAP. All that the department does here is to collect the information and passes it on to the social development office in St. Kitts. They will do whatever analysis needed to be done to determine whether you indeed qualify to be on the PAP. But how many persons did he intervene to make sure they got onto the program? How many? I can tell you something, it's not a few, it's a whole lot. So now it's kind of this condescending now and basically inappropriate for him now to start second guessing the program and the meaning of the program. But the COVID has ended, basically. The suffering has not. If persons are making less than $3,000 per month, and the $500 is the tie over to help them through difficult times, that subsistence should continue until people can find suitable employment to get them over the $3,000 threshold, which here on Nevis is going to be a long time, because he, as the premier of Nevis, hasn't brought any jobs here to Nevis. He hasn't done what he's supposed to do as a premier since 2017, as a member of the CCM since 2013, as a member of the federal cabinet, federal government since 2007. What jobs have he brought to Nevis to do all the things he said he's going to do to make sure people can get off the PAP in numbers? People don't want to be on the PAP. People have to be on the PAP. You think the integrity of Nevisians and Kittitians is that, listen, we're not beggars. We're not beggars. Of course, you're going to be always people who see the other side of that. But the majority of Kittitians and Nevisians are hardworking people who want to stand on their own 2 feet. And this is a relatively minor way to assist families to stay stable and on their feet. So I don't know where the conversation is going with him. He's clearly indicating his preference not to have the PAP as part of our landscape for social development or social safety net, because he doesn't have to worry about income. He has two. He has two incomes, one from the federal government, one from the NIA, plus his law firm, plus this and plus that. So they're living pretty. So he can afford to throw rocks at poor people. I just say it was not intended to be entitlement.
You know what's amazing? Why didn't he make this statement in November of 2022? In December prior to the election in 2022?
He wouldn't do it.
Why he wait until after the election to come and make this statement?
Exactly. He's a political animal with no morals, no morality, no ethics.
Well, my Astro said they're morally bankrupt, you know. But since Astro can't find a song for me to play these days, I'm going to have to revert to my real tune them that sing about our culture and what keeping down our country. I find a big one there a couple of days ago, you know. I haven't played it in a while. So I'm going to drop that one. I also have an 8-minute commentary by Dwyer. I do not know how much time you got with me this evening, but I don't want to hold you up. I know that you might have other things going on there.
You caught me in a good night.
Well, let me drop this track here by my boy Latumba, and we'll come back and speak, because Latumba said we have to speak freely, yeah?
Mm.
Culture must be free, and we have to be free to speak up for the people that cannot speak for themselves. And I'm going to continue to get some blows from the pundits out there who support the Bentley fellow. But at the end of the day, they got to tell me who is more unprofessional. Daly, Carlisle, Morrishaw, or the baby Bentley. Who is more professional? Which one of us out there cussing our citizens, nationals? Which one of us over there getting paid double salary from taxpayers? That's what they need to tell me when they talk about unprofessional and have an agenda. I have an agenda in a brother. And my agenda set out since back in 2021 when I took up arms and went down to the mission with my placards, you know. So anybody who do not see what my agenda was to change the landscape of politics in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, then they were blind. If they're just figuring out that I have an agenda, they were very blind. I dropped short in Nevis, but I'm going to stay pumping. So stand by for my boy Latumba. I want to build up my boy Astro.
They tell me they don't want no politics at all this year. So when I come to sing, I must sing about love. They tell me it's only Uncle Tom's that they want this year. So if it's the crown I'm thinking of, I must sell my soul for a circle of painted gold. But my heart cannot buy it, my conscience reject it. For they lock teachers up in prison and they beat them up without reason. Innocently keep them in jail, and like slaves they refuse them bail. I say to hell with your competition, I want to pass under those conditions. They don't even want to play my song, and none of them to radio station. But I go sing what I see, I go mirror society. Culture must be free, they can't muzzle me. Politics at all. They change up everything, new criteria, new judging. They say they only want songs that lie and say pretty things. So if I could sing just a little line, certainly I would be king. They have the power to make me king. Sing how the island progressing and a new day is dawning. But don't sing about the corporation, help me to murder many African. I advise they live in Barbuda, they kill 3 men from Antigua. I say to hell with your competition, I want no parts under those conditions. They don't even want to play my song, and none of them to radio station. But I go sing what I see, I go mirror society. Culture must be free, they can't muzzle me. They tell me they don't want no politics at all this year. Everybody here feel this mother fairy tale. They say they don't want no revolutionary or socialist. But you know that they brand that communist. Oh, but afraid of this. Say Chakuwaka and they catch a kid. So I can't go beyond the horizon, and not treat Islam is my prison. I must sing about all them policemen who make havoc right here in St. John. We tear gas and 303. They oppress, harass and oppress me. I say to hell with your competition, I want no parts under those conditions. They don't even want to play my song, and none of them to radio station. But I'm going to sing what I see, I go me Jah is my keeper. So who shall I fear? Freedom to the brothers in the ghetto.
Yeah, brother Daly, I'm back. On to the next topic there. Following my program a few weeks ago, I heard you and your Tell Me program, and I think the other one is what, Target?
Yeah,
The one
on target.
and Target on Saturdays. And it appears as though you have a little more information than I did in regards to that strikeout matter between the NRP and those electoral candidates. So let's give the folks a little update on that, your views. You had some meat and your bones there with your conversation.
Well, the hearing for the strikeout, of course, we all know how that went. The judge in his decision decided that the procedure was not properly followed in filing those strikeout applications, in filing the election petition by J.D. Keynes and Dr. Bartlett. So he felt that, you know, he had no choice but to strike out those matters. The difficulty I have is that when I conference with the lawyers on our side, they had a different opinion, that their views were not heard. Their ways of calculating the days, they call it 3 days, that would comprise the period of time after election that you had time to submit your petition. The judge was not willing to entertain any discussion on that, and therefore he felt he was in his right to strike out the matter because of some issues with procedure. Since then, we have learned that the judge, and I wrote about it, indeed was familiar with DBA, Daniel Grant and Associates. DBA is a sister company, since a law firm of Keith Lake Associates in Anguilla, where the judge worked for a number of years. We also learned that, you know, one of the members of the Daniel Brantley team had what we call unfettered access to the judge and his chambers during and outside of court. And so we felt that it was up to him to recuse himself from the proceedings, just to make sure there is no conflict whatsoever, not even contemplated or otherwise. And that way, when the judgment came back, people will feel settled in their minds that the right decision was made. But what we are being told, and what I'm being told, is that during the deliberations of the strikeout, his attitude towards the lawyers on our side was so condescending, so arrogant, that, you know, it betrayed his intentions not to see anything from our side. And so it was not surprised when his conclusion came down, his decision came down. I had predicted it weeks before, and so said, so done. The matter, one of the plaintiffs, one of the candidates for NRP, Ms. J.D. Keynes, she is seeking redress to the OECS High Court. She has filed an application for review. Dr. Bartlett has decided to call it a day. Of course, the concerns, of course, is money. And, you know, as poor people, money is always a concern. You stand to lose. When you lose matters like this, the penalty can be quite severe. And that is something that I've spoken about and against, that there should be some method afforded to persons who are in no financial position to go to high court, just like Dr. Drew found money for these open heart surgeries, for these heart surgeries, corrective heart surgeries for those 2 young people from St. Kitts. One today, he said one was 70,000 US, one was 50,000 US or thereabouts. We must be able to also afford such courtesies to poor people who have brought matters before the court, but do not have the expertise, do not have the resources to follow through. And so you can't have it one way or the other. Injustice is justice. And I believe that we are not doing service to our people by having the courts only to those who can afford it.
That point is well taken. You know, it's unfortunate that we reach where we reach, Brother Daly, because as I've said previously, I flew down to St. Kitts on the 10th of December, and the 11th I came across to Nevis, and I was there until the 12th doing my observation for the elections. Not only I observed the irregularities myself, firsthand, the Premier himself announced the irregularities on various occasions. He said even his deputy Premier said that it was irregularities in his areas. And I have been campaigning on this program for these cases to be filed. And to hear now that there was stricken out because there was filed late, whatever it was, for me, is a sour taste because I know the wrong that was done. The entire federation knows the wrong that was done. And, you know, 2 weeks ago, I played some clips for the AG to hear. And he said to me, it's the first time he's hearing them. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
For me, it's unfortunate that is the first time he hearing those. Because I had several meetings set up on this platform for the AG and the Prime Minister. And naturally, they're busy getting things together and flying back and forth, trying to get things online compared to what they meet there. And we never really had an opportunity to come together. So I really have to also thank them for taking the time out to come to the people and speak to the people. But I also believe in the saying, nothing happened before it's time.
But you see, let me say something quickly. The NRP chairman, Henry Daniel, and I think the party leader, Dr. Hodge, would have indicated her unease and the party's unease about several matters leading up to the election. All right. Letters would have been written to the AG concerning this issue of not requiring anymore the presentation of an ID to vote. That was something totally new. I know the chairman, Henry Daniel, would have written to the AG. We got no response. I know Dr. Hodge would have also indicated in person and in writing of a discomfort about having the former supervisor of elections present as part of this 2022 elections. We got no response from that. We would have written to the supervisor of elections concerning some issues. No response from that. The party lawyers, Patrice Nisbet and Smarty Nisbet would have met with the Electoral Commission regarding certain matters, no resolution. And so we would have been campaigning on the issue that the elections would be won and lost from the electoral office, and that something needed to be done to clean up that office, to make sure that it was not one-sided. I suggested personally that a member from the NRP must be given full access to everything in that office, somewhat similar to what Denville Vaughan was doing on St. Kitts. We got nowhere with that. And so it was clear that there was a setup going on. And this last election has left a dirty taste in people's mouth, that enough was not being done to safeguard the efficacy of the elections. And you know, I couldn't find the tape of Brantley saying that he would have spoken with the Prime Minister or written to the Prime Minister, I don't remember which one, but he had communication with the Prime Minister regarding the presence of overseas, what do you call them, observers. And there was no response from Dr. Drew. That is what he indicated. It's the first election prosecuted in Nevis where we didn't have overseas observers. You know, it's kind of really weird that, you know, this would happen, especially in such a heated, contested elections that we had in 2022.
You know, it's a whole bunch of things that went wrong, Brother Daly. Like I said, for me, the first eye-opener was when Sam Kanda brought some concerns on Freedom 106.5 FM and groundings about the legality of the Electoral Commission, not properly constituted.
I remember that.
That was the first thing. And by the next day, Saturday, that was addressed. But if I'm not mistaken, during that time, the Prime Minister and a team, including Brantley and Cleon Stapleton Simmons, was over in Taiwan or someplace during that time. Anyway, that was resolved, and then it went from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and the
I think it was
confusion.
resolved only on the basis that you now have a properly constituted commission. But what was not resolved was the functioning of the commission in time for them to conduct the elections fairly. So while on paper there was a checklist of names, yes, you had to know the complete set of persons you needed, but that was only on paper. I mean, the actual what we were concerned about was how effective would this commission be, this newly constituted commission, in time for the election. And I think Sam Conda was even intimating that perhaps it would be best to delay the election until the commission got its legs under them, for them to fully understand the functions and the roles that they're playing.
But the conversation we are on is well timed. I just received a WhatsApp there from the AG. Apparently, he's listening to the broadcast, and he says, "Please let Mr. Daly know that the Electoral Commission is responsible for elections, not the AG." So,
no, but I know that what we wrote, what Hensley wrote to him about was concerning. He wanted an opinion, a legal opinion, as to whether the commission was operating within the ambit of not requiring the presentation of an ID during elections. I don't think it was about anything more than that.
Okay, so Hensley wanted to know about the change of someone can present themselves to vote without an ID.
Yeah, all you had to do at that point was to swear an oath that the person that you say you are, that you are. Right? I look very similar to Denny, and Denny looked very similar to Steve, my other brother. No, I couldn't go to the electoral office, the electoral at the polling station, and say I'm Winston Daly, my brother. I look like him. The picture on the voter ID looks like him, but I'm not him. I swear an office. I swear an oath that is me. That is, I'm indeed Winston. Who's to say I'm not? I leave that voting place and I go someplace else and say I'm Stephen Daly, my other brother. I mean, who's to say I am not Stephen Daly? He looks like me. So there is, when I spoke to one of the commissioners, he indicated to me, yes, we are aware of the possibility of fraud. We have made our claim, we have made our concerns known to the appropriate authorities. I wasn't told who the appropriate authorities are, but the commissioner told me in no certain terms, we have spoken about this for years, that there's a loophole here that needs to be fixed. And so the idea now that people can vote without an ID is something that came to bear the last election, not before, because I was advising people all along as a candidate in 2020 and as a NRP activist ever since, that make sure that you have a national ID, not just no ID, a national ID, whether it's a driver's license, social security card, or voter's ID, or your passport. We are learning, no, once is an ID. So a person who holding Canadian citizenship, who I encourage to make sure they got a Nevis ID. It was unnecessary all along. A lot of people who came to vote with US passports could not vote because we were being advised that they could not vote without a national St. and Nevis passport, ID. So this revelation of the last election, when I conversated again with the commissioners, one of the commissioners, I was told it's always been there. It depends on your interpretation of it, but we cannot prevent anybody from voting. Once your name is on the list, you can vote. And that was the end of the story.
You know, it's funny that you said that. I'm gonna respond to you in a bit, but there's someone online that says, no, Mr. Daly, we didn't have any overseas voters in 2017 either. So
whether it's 2017 or 2013 or 2015, you know, we were telling people, make sure you have a local ID.
But you know something, Brother Daly, and I think that is part of my problem in life as well.
And who said we didn't have voters? We didn't have overseas voters in 2017. That's crazy.
Somebody by the name of Carleen said we didn't have overseas voters in 2017.
That's nonsense.
Anyway, what you just said about not being able to vote without a proper ID, that was my understanding as well. And it's amazing when there are laws on the books that has loophole, where you have one set are trying to follow the rules to the extent of the law to do the right thing, to try and do the right thing, while another set is out there busy trying to use a loophole. Apparently, that loophole was there that you guys never pay attention to because you want to follow the letter to the law to do the right thing. And I said that the person said there was no overseas observers in 2017. Observers.
Observers?
Not voters, observers. I hope.
I don't think that's true either, because I remember we had an OECS report headed by, I think, the former, I can't remember, I don't want to put myself on the line, but I know we had observers in 2017. Okay.
Well, recently, I can say to you, prior to these elections, I don't think you had overseas voters, observers, sorry, not voters, observers, because I remember that
no, you're fine, because I was the returning officer for the 2013 elections, and we had OECS observers. I remember that mission came in, they sat behind me at the counting location at the Bath police station, and there were several there from the OECS.
Well, I'm not sure whether this is the federal or the local, but I know there was a time not too long ago when there was no overseas observers because it was the pastors, the Christian council that was doing their thing.
Okay.
Right? And I know that for a fact because I remember speaking to my sister, Pastor Brown, and she had to be one of those people jumping from parish to parish to whatever. And the person says 2017, so it can very well be 2017.
I think we just need to be consistent. If we're going to have observers, we're going to have observers. I think it needs to be consistent across the board, across elections, because you don't need another talking point about the unfairness of election or whether they were observers or not. Make it consistent. Are you going to have observers or you're not?
I think the time is ripe now with the new administration, with the new AG. I think I've heard them say it enough time where things cannot be this way next time around. Both elections drop in a very short time. When the government changed in the federal election, that was a very short time from the time Labour Party had their convention to when the election was called. That was a very short scope. And from the time of when we should have been focusing on the NIA election, you know, they had to switch gears. And Mr. Daly, I could understand you guys in Nevis being upset with what's going on, because I am very upset and disappointed myself. But you know what give me some solace, some comfort, is because we was able to take care of the bigger problem. The bigger problem was that team unity administration in a partner. Could you imagine if we had the team unity administration today, along with a CCM-led government like we had in the past 7 years, what position we'll be in today?
We've been dead.
Could you imagine that?
We have been dead, I'll tell you that.
So, though I am somewhat disappointed with what's happening in Nevis, as I have said then, I would stand by it.
What we need, DJ Morrishaw, we need real electoral reform. All right, you can't have a situation where Nevis is battling two campaigns, two elections every cycle. I mean, it's gotten better. Well, I can't say it's gotten better, but every 2.5 years, we had an election, move the federal into local. I mean, the expenditure, the disruptions to our society, community relations, the social fabric of our society ripped apart every 2 years. I mean, this needs reform.
Mr. Daly, Mr. Daly.
It's costing too much money. It's costing too much in blood and tears and hardship. It needs to end. And one other thing needs to happen, besides other issues with the electoral reform, is the fact that the electoral office itself needs reforming. When you leave the NIA at its own discretion to appoint who they feel should be in that office, managing that office, without any oversight from the opposition or any neutral body, then you're at the mercy of the government. It's untenable. It is wrong. I don't care which party may orchestrate it. It is wrong. This must be an item on the list of things to do in good governance, because without good government, you don't have good governance. And to get good government, you need a government that represents the people in the first instance. You can't have a government outside of the people. But when you have elections being maneuvered into a certain direction because you control the electoral process, then how can you say you want to have a good governance agenda after the fact? You must have fair and free elections as the fundamental building block of a good governance agenda.
Okay. But Daly, I guess you could check this one off your checklist. The Attorney General, Mr. Garth Wilkin, just follow up a message. He says there will be electoral reform very soon. So let's hold a foot to the fire. Let's see that happen. What I can say, I try to be realistic about things, not make an excuse for anyone. But the mess that we are in, this mess took place in the last 7 years, like I said. And the government that is there now trying to make corrections and do things the right way, whether fix the electoral system or the Integrity in Public Life or the Freedom of Information Act. You realize that they couldn't do that in opposition, right?
Of course.
Okay. So they are there for 7 years. And is it fair for us to say that in the 7 years, and sorry, they're there for 7 months compared to 7 years? That's the point I'm trying to make. They're there for 7 months. It is fair for us to say that they're going in the right direction, trying to correct some of these issues that we've been speaking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I appreciate the stance the AG has taken. I appreciate his forthrightfulness on the matters. I appreciate his dedication to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. All right. He doesn't act in a vacuum, of course. He has other colleagues that may be impacted by things he wants to do. And I've heard him say publicly that if he ever comes to a point where he feels that he's being second guessed or undermined or compromised, he will walk away. And I do appreciate that level of commitment to what he's doing. And I think he said he speaks for Dr. Joe when it comes to legislation guiding good governance, the good governance agenda. And I believe him. The issue, I don't want this to be a Bastia-focused agenda. I want this to be a federal-focused agenda, where Nevis is under the same spotlight and the CCM is under the same spotlight as you're getting now on St. Kitts with the millions missing from, allegedly missing from the bank, or any other inappropriate behavior. I would want that focus not only on St. Kitts, but also on Nevis. Does the government in St. Kitts have the wherewithal or the desire to prosecute a case of corruption on Nevis? I don't know. I don't know, because I've not heard a single investigation going on with the millions spent on Nevis from the CBI. I've heard about the investigations that be launched into the development bank, into the port, the solar farm, into the prison, into all kinds of things, into the marriage by, it's such a marriage program. I have yet to hear a single word about any particular investigation or any undertaking that would focus here on Nevis, the issues that we're now talking about.
I am of the view, and as a matter of fact, as you know, the AJ heard the clips that I played previously in regards to the voting. But I do not know if he heard the clips that I played previously in regards to the no, yes, he heard them. I played them that evening. He heard those clips about the hospital. And I would want to believe Brother Daly is this. According to the guidance I received from the AG, once the 6 weeks period has passed where they sensitize the general public about these new laws, we as citizens of the Federation, have a right to request these information. If we don't get them, we know what we have to do, And I'll be leading the flock if nobody else want to do it. I'm definitely laser focused on that hospital wing, because what I'm hearing, the different songs I'm hearing about that particular situation, a building that should have started in 2017 and should have been completed in 24 months. It should have been 2019. And yet, in 2021, your junior minister gave a report of money spent so far of some 14 million. 2021, Mr. Daly, from 2017 to 2021, that's way past 24 months,
Yeah.
And for Premier to then support that report, I'm going to come 2 years later in 2023 with a $8 million report saying that is what was spent, and come back a couple of days later to tell me that both report was wrong. I have a problem with those things.
Right.
I understand what mobilization fees are. So baby Brantley cannot tell me that Miss Williams, Hazel Brandy Williams made a mistake. Instead of putting 600,000, she put 6 million, vice versa. I met Miss Daniel myself, Miss Hazel Williams. I met her on the 11th of December while I was in Nevis. And the lady got more sense than that. You think when the patch-up fellow was talking about 98% of our citizens will face the common sense test, you think he was talking about the CCM party?
Sometimes I chuckle that the premier are playing people for fools. All right, that people are not paying attention for some reason. I don't know what gave him the impression that, he should have known by now that we are checking everything that we can get our hands on. And in 2021, when Hazel Brandy Williams made that report in Parliament, and in the budget debates in Parliament, he applauded the figure. They celebrated the fact that they had not busted the budget, that it was still within the confines of the $19 million. And everything was going to plan. They had some delays because of COVID, yada, yada, yada. So it was all well and good. He believed everything. And here, fast forward a year later, a new junior minister, well, she's not a junior minister in my view, because she has the full portfolio as a senior minister of health. He has removed himself from the picture. And you wonder why. He understudied Hazel Brandy Williams, but this younger person, he just throw out there in the deep end and says, go and swim, make me look good. Anyway, the young lady goes into Parliament and fumbles the ball, comes in with a lowball figure of 8 million and change. And he, while in Parliament, listening to the debate, was busy on Facebook, reiterating what the young lady had said about 8 million.
Yes, and beat to the desk.
Yes, and he has yet to take it down. He still has it up there, as if he's not around. 2 days later, he's fenced in because now he has to answer, well, how come you have this 8 million on one way and 14 million another way? And so rather than throw the young senator under the bus, he chose to throw both of them under the bus and take no responsibility whatsoever. And then the last go around, he's blaming the technocrats within the Ministry of Finance for giving the young minister the wrong numbers. I mean, when do people start taking responsibility for themselves, for their actions? Before you go on public and make a fool of yourself, double check, triple check Get the numbers, your people, get the right numbers before you come to the public. A third time. Now, I'm told this evening he's supposed to be making an announcement on his show regarding the expenditure. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to chicken out. He's been, the cabinet, the presentation was on February 20th. We're now into the March 15th. And no figure can be found yet. I mean, where are these figures? In Dubai? In Russia? Where are the figures? Where are the receipts the young lady said she had? I mean, give them to me. I'll add them up. I got a calculator. It's not that difficult.
Our people are like they need, they say they want to hear the clips. They want to hear the clips. Play the clips. So stand by it. Let them hear the clip.
Utilize this space, and so they have come back with a revised plan. Mr. President, my figures from the persons at finance as well as the project manager is showing us that the amount paid out to contractors and subcontractors so far amounted to $6.853 million. There is an additional amount of another $6.218 million remaining for the contractors and subcontractors. And this amount includes variation. Because remember I said earlier, I gave you what the initial plan was, and now we have come back with an addition to 6 additions to the new building. And so indeed there will be variations. What I can say to you, Mr. President, and based on the figures that I've been given, we have now used $14.218 million out of the $19 million allocated for this project. It means then, Mr. President, that we are still under budget.
Like, no secret that right now there is a hospital project going on, but we've seen that it's incomplete. And not only that it's incomplete, it is, I think it's behind, and it's definitely over budget. So we would like to know, well, what are some of the issues?
Correct one aspect of your IRA. The hospital is not over budget.
It's not over
It
budget.
is behind, but it's not over budget. And I think our junior Minister of Health spoke to that eloquently in the last budget debates in the House in December. She broke it down. She explained what the budget was and how much has been spent thus far.
Okay,
so at this point, it is not over budget.
Remind us at this point. Do you remember those figures?
I believe that the number that she spoke to was somewhere in the region of 15 million or thereabouts, and I think she said that some 13 million has been spent thus far. But she did speak publicly on it in the budget debate.
So technically, yes. 15, 13 million, do we see it completing within budget? 2 million, you think?
Well, we will have to spend some extra money, yes. Okay. But at this point, I'm saying at this point, it is incorrect to say that the hospital is over budget because we've not yet even exhausted the initial amount.
I take that back. I take that part back. But what are some of the issues where we see why it's behind then? Well, if we have already budgeted for it.
First of all, it seems to me that in the ongoing discussion that people forget that we had 2 years of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I know that it is not popular for people to talk about COVID because people see it as an excuse. But
something, that was the big B, right? Supporting Sister Hazel Brandy, the $14 million plus in 2021. And they gone to the minor key, the minor card. You're playing your guitar, you got to use a minor card, right? So the minor card for Baby Brantley is COVID, right? Well, let's move on to the major card now, which is the new minister. So we're going to the major card.
Completing the interior is of the highest priority to our administration. That is why $12 million, Madam President, would have been allocated in this budget to ensure its timely completion. And Madam President, Some would have you believe that we've blown through the initial $19 million estimate with no hospital to show for it. As Minister Evelyn indicated, Madam President, we like facts on this side. As the young people say, we have our receipts. So, Madam President, to date, we have spent $8,342,443.76 out of the initial $19 million budgeted. We would have only spent $8,342,443.76 out of the initial $19 million budgeted. So when you hear talks of over budget, I want the House to have the official figures on record, not those imagined or otherwise, Madam President.
Our new Minister of Health, she came and in her presentation, she would have sought to update the public on some expenditure at the hospital wing, the expansion project. And we recognize that there's been a bit of uncertainty created because she gave a number of, I think, somewhere just over $8 million. And the previous Minister of Health had come, I believe it was in 2021, and given a number which was close to $14 million. So that's a significant difference in terms of how much has been spent. I have asked that that discrepancy be resolved. The information that has come now suggests that perhaps both figures were incorrect. And I will undertake that we will have a full number available to the public as soon as we can. And the reason that I do not have it today, Madam President, is because we have been advised that we have been affected adversely by the cyber attack that we had. And so some of the numbers, I'm told, they have to retrieve manually, which has created a bit of a difficulty in us getting it for today, because I wanted to respond and clarify the situation today.
Like I said, brother, that's the minor card, eh? The minor card. They jump to COVID too.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
You know, but my folks online that are easy, you know, they're not easy at all. They want to hear the clips.
You know, the funny thing, DJ, that hack they spoke about happened even before budget, you know.
Okay. I hope you remember that. I remember, you know, Troy said that they got back all the backups and stuff. The only thing they didn't get was the email. Eh? He have everything. But the truth is, I am not expecting any report from Baby Brantley. I want to see this matter being investigated by the special prosecutor, whoever going to be responsible with this your governor, good governance agenda. I'm waiting for the AG to point me in the right direction, because I'll be filing a claim for some investigative matters in that hospital. Since the folks at Nevis pens them, you know, back in the days, we used to have to put our pens in hot water for the ink to loosen up to write. I want to believe you all have the problem in Nevis, you know. You all want to send some steam down there.
Remember, we're still using slates.
You're still using slates down there, you're wiping it off with the cardboard.
Oh, Lord.
But
I want this investigation to go from the beginning. Why was Spencer Brand chosen? He was a candidate for the CCM. He was chosen to be the architect for this multi-million-dollar project. There was no bidding, no tendering, nothing. He has no expertise. That is the harder question that needs to be asked of Brantley.
But all of these things have to be asked. But I'm saying, you guys there on the ground, you all need to put your stuff together. Don't worry about the horse that gone through the gate. Let's focus about the horse that is in the stable, mashing up the stable.
Let me tell you something. It's all kind of horse. There's about 6 horses that are tied together in that whole pen. Right? You can't separate them out. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He goes around and solicits donation from ROC Taiwan. They gave him $179 million years ago for kidney dialysis machines. The money has simply vanished. It's just one thing after another with this guy. And the former Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, said it eloquently. He cannot manage money.
He cannot manage. He cannot be trusted with it. He can't.
You know, anybody with any sense of direction or common sense, having come into that sum of money from the federal government, remittances from the federal government, would have sought to make some meaningful impact on the landscape, the economic landscape of Nevis, you know, for a long time to come. But he simply cannot seem to manage. I mean, when he spoke at a press conference about, at the time when the disclosure was made, I think he said, I think the disclosure at the time was $300 million in remittances from the federal government. And he remarked, people talking as if that's a lot of money. It is not. I mean, is that where we are? This is monopoly money. So $300 million in a population of 12,000 people is not a lot of money. I mean, on what planet is he living on? He's so disconnected from the daily struggles of people's lives to know that, you know, that sort of input should have resulted in a better standard of living for Nevisians. Come on now, right? Yeah. But when you look at what the World Bank and the IMF and all of them are saying, and I think Congress made that in his presentation for the anti-corruption bill also alluded to it, the same sources, about the losses that we sustain as a country from corruption. And I think the average globally is about 30% of GDP, or not of GDP, of government spending yearly. So in our case, in Nevis here, we have a $200 million budget. Then 30% of that is 60 million gone. And I want people to understand, when that money goes, so does social safety net programs, so does investments in water and power, so does education and training. It does not simply disappear. It is a cost to it. And people must understand corruption hurts all of us. And so while we are so hell-bent on locking up criminals for robbery and assault and battery and those kind of things, and you know, to the full extent of the law, and I support that, you know, we are watching the white collar criminals with the suit and ties and the nice starched shirts and the, you know, silk clothing and expensive cars walk away with billions. You know,
yeah. I'm here thinking about my boy Ayatollah, right? Because the two favorite words for the baby Brantley these days is COVID and hacking. Right?
You could write a collection on that.
I cannot sing, that's the problem. I cannot sing. So I want you to give my boy Baha'u'llah a message, man. I want him to give me a call because we have to get something for Culturama. Some years ago, the Ayatollah sang a song, The Virus in the Computer. I cannot pen a song like that. But I want to let the people of the world to know that the COVID hacked the CCM computer. It's COVID that hacked the computer.
Very encourageable.
Yeah, because...
But no wonder Brandy don't want to talk to you.
Well, the thing about it is, you know, whether you want to believe it or not, I love the gentleman as a person. And I want to believe if he were to come and talk to me, he will enjoy himself, you know, because he would have an opportunity to present himself to the people and see if I am wrong. And if I am wrong, I'll be happy to apologize, you know. I only presented the facts that I have. I'm not attacking him.
Are you wrong?
I don't think I'm wrong, but he could prove me wrong. Just as you and I here talking, he could come and have a conversation with me and say, boy, Morrishaw, you're wrong, you know. This is the case, that is the case. You know, when I told you that we are looking for investors for the airport, back in November, that was actually true. We didn't have an investor.
Mm.
They're talking about this guy was a potential investor contract signed. That wasn't true. He could tell me that. Just prove me.
Mm.
Because in November, that's what he told me. He said they were seeking investors. He didn't tell me they have one.
Somebody pinched me today and told me that the contract to redevelop the airport has now been issued, which I find very troubling because we have yet to have one admission from the government that the contract, the arrangements have been completed, that the negotiations are now complete. It did indicate to us that once the negotiations are complete, that the people of Nevis will be fully aware of the scope of the works. We have not been privy to any information of that type. And so to hear today that the contract has been awarded to do the work that is we suspected will be done without any consultation, no EIA is done on the impact on the area, residents or in the near shore area, it's troubling. But it goes to the heart of the man. He simply does not care about what people think. He's going to do exactly what he wants and things that can benefit him and his family.
But if a contract is in fact signed, whether it's tentative or not binding as he claimed, Baby Brantley have things in reverse. You cannot go and do something like an investment at the airport that he's proposing without consulting the public. The general public must have a say.
Of course.
Before you get to that point.
Of course.
Not too long ago, I heard Baby Brantley say that the reason why the airport not doing well is because people prefer to fly into St. Kitts. So it doesn't make sense.
So you got a third component to your song. You got a computer hack. You got the COVID. Now you have people flying from RLB.
And I got a few more still. And you just can't make these things up in a daily. You cannot make these things up. When I come across them, I said, no, this can't be so. This guy cannot be saying this. I wonder if he listened to himself after he finished speaking.
Have you heard him say anything at all about MSR since they moved to St. Kitts and possibly spread into Antigua?
Not a word. But the funny thing about it is with that, right? That was his big thing during the COVID. This was his big thing. That was his baby.
That was his baby.
So he threw the baby with the bath water.
That baby cost me, the taxpayers, $15 million. $15 million in 2 years. This is a script all by itself for a movie.
You know, before I get too deep into this conversation with you, I forgot to play my boy Dwyer. Let me give Dwyer history here. Stand by a minute.
Greetings. Running a country is not an easy thing, even a small country like ours. And being a genuine social commentator is also not an easy thing. In some countries, people lose their lives doing it. Fortunately, that's not the case in St. Kitts and Nevis. However, social critics here have faced personal abuse, character assassination, and victimization. And the abuse and personal attacks have become more vicious and plentiful with the advent of mankind's latest weapon of mass destruction, the social media, a virtually limitless platform for expression and information sharing, which was created by human ingenuity, but which has exposed levels of human depravity never before experienced. Many people across the globe are afraid to express themselves openly. They spend much of their lives suffering from fearful hearts, frustrated minds, and constipated consciences. I don't allow myself to be shackled and boxing like that. I express myself. Of course, I try not to be irresponsible, disrespectful, deceitful, or defamatory. I take this thing very seriously, and in my own little way, my aim is to inform and to encourage people to think, all in the hope that individually and collectively we can make our country a better place. I am a supporter of the philosophy of the labor movement, and I appreciate its great accomplishments on behalf of the people of this country over the past 90 plus years. But my loyalties are to principles and causes, not to individuals. Now, to those of you listening to this commentary, who at this point might be salivating in hope and anticipation that what follows will be an attack on the Terence Drew administration, I encourage you to save your saliva. Save it for the revelations which can see some individuals doing jail time for crimes that they committed against the people of this land. And in any case, I don't attack. Rather, I observe, I do my research, and I deliver. And when I tell you that something is a fact, it is. And when I tell you something is likely to happen, the record shows that it usually does happen. When I spoke out against things that had been done under the Simmons administration, and then the Douglas administration, and then the Harris administration, the pushback came mainly in the form of personal abuse, hate-mongering, and so forth, not in the form of reasoned responses and rebuttals. You see, people don't respond to logic, often with logic, so they respond with personal abuse. And in this process, in my days of advocacy and agitation, going back to the early 90s, 3 prime ministers have lost their jobs, and deservingly so. Prime Minister Drew has earned his way to the leadership of this country, and he deserves a fair chance to prove his worth. But getting a fair chance doesn't come just from us. He has to be involved in giving himself a fair chance as well. And he will do that by making sound decisions, taking sound advice, avoiding yes men and yes women, avoiding opportunists, avoiding square pegs who are called upon to fit into round holes. And you will have to neutralize the deceptive ones whose mentalities and actions are not in his interest, not in the Labour Party's interest, not in the country's interest. There are some who profess their loyalty to his leadership, but they are liars and underminers. I know what some of them are doing, and I know who's their man of business, and it isn't Dr. Drew. All of these groups, which I've mentioned, are already doing damage, and they must be stopped. Now, some of you are going to be displeased with me for saying these things, but if you are one of the liars and underminers, you know that I and other people are now on to you. And if you are not one of those liars and underminers, just an innocent bystander who is skeptical of what I'm saying, in time you will see. But I'm not waiting. I'm backing Dr. Drew and the Labour Party under his leadership, and I will do what I have to do to smoke out the liars and the underminers, and the square pegs, and the opportunists, and the other deadweights. We need a lean and clean machine. And the final group of persons who need to step up their game are Dr. Drew's elected colleagues. They must remember that they were elected to Parliament, not to Cabinet. So they are first and foremost representatives of the people, and they must act accordingly, busy as they may be with their ministerial duties. They must never lose touch with the people on the ground. Remember, nobody forced them into candidacy. Whether as representatives or ministers, they must keep in touch with the ground and keep at the forefront of their thoughts and actions the empowerment of the people of this country, especially the small man and woman. But let me put this in perspective. These negative forces to which I've referred are not unique to the Drew administration. They exist in all parties and organizations and always did. Even in this organization and this government and this country, which has such a popular leader in Dr. Drew. And though these people may be small in number, I mean the liars and the underminers particularly, they need to be smoked out, regardless of how high up the ladder they may be positioned. Similarly, of course, for the square pegs, the opportunists, and the deadweights. Can you imagine one of these people telling an investor to encourage Dr. Drew to bring back Galaxy who milk this country for hundreds of millions of US dollars. And what do we have to show for it? Can you imagine one of them bad-mouthing the young cabinet to an investor? Can you imagine one of them telling an investor who wants to build a small number of residences here for super billionaires who can do so much to help our country and our people? Can you imagine one of them telling an investor that that's not a good idea, that the country doesn't want that? Can you imagine one of them telling a big investor whose money is clean and who can create serious economic opportunity and jobs in the country that the investor's paperwork must fit into the queue, not high priority, wait its turn for months maybe before it can be addressed? These are some of the things that the liars and underminers are saying and doing. That is why they must be stopped, and that is why we are going to smoke them out. They are not going to be allowed to torpedo the efforts of Dr. Drew and the people of this country to get where we all need to be. Those days are done, and those types of people must go. Until next time, all the very best.
Yeah, Brother Daly, that is G.A. Dwyer Astafan commentary for today. And you know, as he started out the first part of his commentary, I smiled to myself because I have been told on so many occasions, especially by my good friend here, Derek Davis, out of Jamaica. He said, Morrishaw, you know, if you was in Jamaica, all these things every week you're on the government case, they would take you out. You know, so you and I and Tulo and Brother Carlisle and the rest of the team have to really keep our eyes up, be careful, because, you know, we are looked at as people that is not fitting into the peg where there's round a square that they want us to fit into. They want us to mislead the masses, and I can't do that. I have to just be the facts.
Let me be honest with you, Morrishaw, as I've tried to be honest with all my life. The message delivered by Astafan is a good message, that persons who are deliberately trying to undermine the government need to be brought to heel. I understand that and accept it. But, and I hate to be the person who said, look at the messenger also, but I recall very clearly that Mr. Astafan was an ardent supporter of Mark Brantley during the campaign, several campaigns. I don't know where he stands now.
He still is.
Yeah, and so when Brantley was undermining Premier Parrott regarding geothermal, I mean, it's sort of hypocritical that he's now found some balance where he feels he can now say, you're going to smoke them out. Is he willing to smoke out Brantley for what he did to geothermal development?
Not cutting you off, not cutting you off, but in his speech there, if he was willing to smoke out Brantley, he would speak up about what's going on in Nevis, because...
Exactly. But he claims that he doesn't know what's going on in Nevis, he doesn't pay attention.
He never,
I don't know how the persons on St. Kitts, resident on St. Kitts, see him or see his message. But from where I sit here in Nevis, we really don't want to hear anything from Astafan. I'll be honest with you. Because he speaks eloquently. He speaks to what should be, you know, and not what is. You can't be talking about smoking out persons who are detractors of the Drew government, while here on Nevis we are hemorrhaging because of another person that you support. You can't have it both ways. You either go down the middle or you don't go. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. But you can't be smoking out detractors on St. Kitts and praising those on Nevis. I mean, what credibility is that? So I listen to him to hear his positions on certain matters. And that's as far as it goes. I take it with a grain of salt because I know he's not speaking to divisions. He's speaking to Kittitians.
As you said, his commentaries are very positive. I take them, I enjoy them, and they educate me. the little I get to know of Dwyer and Sam and all of the guys I have been associated with in the Get Rid of Them campaign, the Larry Vaughan, the Ira McMahon, my cousin there, Dr. Martin. They are very positive folks, good for the federation, good for the community, but they drop short, and I say to them privately and I tell them publicly, because of their realness. I call it realness because I am a realist. And this is where I'm going to lose friends and family, because I'm going to tell you like it is. You know, I had a conversation with Miss Hazel Brandy there on the 11th of December. For the first time, I had a conversation with her because of the clip that I heard was going around. And she told me that for her, it's for Nevis. Anything for Nevis is not personal. And so far, I'll be honest with you, I see her as a nice person. I respect her as such. And I am still waiting for her to come here to tell the people in public before I could rate her really what's going on. And that was just about the clip. Now, it's gone further than the clip. Now she's been called out by the Premier as presenting false information in a 2021 budget.
That's right.
So that's two things that she needs to come here and clarify. And until she come here and clarify those things, I hold my observation still for the other shoes to drop. Now, on the other hand, with Dwyer and Sam and these guys, I tell them all the time, I have a hard time digesting some of the things that they say. Because if you know what is wrong, and I know they know the difference between wrong and right, with what took place in Nevis, what is still taking place in Nevis, why is it so hard for them to speak about it publicly?
Jeffrey, let me ask you something. How is it that you live in New York, you came down here expressly to participate in and observe the Nevis elections? How is it that you, all the names you call, that you're the only person who came across the shark-infested water to see for yourself what's going on in Nevis?
Pardon, I guess I'm crazy.
That's your minor card or your major card?
I think that might be my major card. I think I must be crazy because Gwyneth look at me back in 2021 as I was about to head down to Manhattan to demonstrate during the time when those three folks got arrested and people got tear gas. And while I was packing the placards into a black garbage bag because I'm taking the train, I didn't want people to see what I have until such time that I release them. She said to me, why are you doing this? With the thousands of Kittitian and division out there, why have to be you? And I asked her, why don't have to be me?
Exactly.
You know? And she said, well, I concerned about your safety and I don't want you to go down there to get arrested and get yourself into no trouble and this. And I understand the concern. But I realized from all of my communication with individuals that somebody have to do it, and I cannot ask you to do it, because if I'm going to ask you to do it, why don't I do it myself? I don't think you can do it as good as I can.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And there was a couple of people that was down there who messaged me and was concerned about being arrested and whatever the case might be as well. And I told them if I have to be arrested for what I am doing, I believe strong enough in it that it will worth it.
So be it.
It will worth it for me. And there are people messaging me from across the globe. I get messages from England weekly during my time in St. Kitts while I was demonstrating and observing the Nevis election, telling me be careful down there. People gonna get hurt and whatever. I was cursed out by people in St. Kitts telling me to go back where I come from, you know. They say I come mash up my country.
Wow.
Some say I have an agenda. But the agenda, I think, should have been clear when I went down to the mission. I went down there to let them know that the reason why we have an ambassador of St. Kitts Nevis to the United Nations is about human rights and civil rights. And like I told Sam Kanda before, he was an ambassador here for 5 years, so he should know what that is all about. So the way that's going on, maybe somebody could tell me different. Because if you have all these names I just called Brother Daly, and they're not doing half of the things that I'm doing, and I'm doing it, well, if I'm in the minority, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe they could see something I can't see.
I don't think it's that. I think once you're called to a certain station in life, that is your station to make. I know persons here in Nevis and in the diaspora have been concerned about me and my safety. A good friend of mine, Delicious Nicholas Brown down there in St. Thomas, she and a few of her friends got together and bought some security devices for me because I couldn't park my truck without having it keyed or, tires slashed or anything like that because of my advocacy. And so they went and invested in something for my personal safety. You got people who call me at evenings when I finish the shows to make sure I get home safe. So the concern is real, and I do appreciate the concerns. My own family has asked me to stop and come back to the States to live. But it is not for me to run from a battle or a challenge. It's for me to try to find some means of solving issues for us here on the ground. If I'm to succumb to something like that, that is my fate, right? And all of us who do this kind of work, whether it's Carlisle or Tulu, myself, you, those guys on the shows all over the Federation, it's a burden we all bear. But public service means that we are in the service of the public. We are here to educate the public, good, bad, and indifferent. I don't pull any punches when I present. If it is wrong, it's wrong. When I joined the NRP in 2016, people thought I was here for a long time. Oh, in 2016, I joined after I left the college. And I said to Premier Parry at the time, the leader of the party, if ever NRP was to stray away from its philosophy of helping the poor, I'm gone. I prefer to die alone in a cave somewhere than be a part of a process or institution that has lost its way. And I mean that up to now. And I heard Garth Wilkins say the same thing. If he feels that he is being compromised by his administration, he too will walk the plank and move on. And so I appreciate people like yourself and others who have made it their duty to inform the public, come hell or high water, on the issues that are confronting us as a country.
The major call during the federal election, Mr. Daly, I don't even think people understand how serious this matter was. Apart from the issue at the electoral office, right? I don't know if you heard about them moving polling station from down by a church down in town,
yes,
up to Shadwell.
Yes.
And that was orchestrated so beautifully. And this is why I got to give Dwyer and Sam the credit that is due to them. Because when those guys told me where this station was moved to, and they direct me to go and check the areas and stuff, I did not even know how to get around. I go up there, I see more than one church. I did not know what to look for. And Dwyer took the time out from his office and came and showed me the whole setup. And it was clear when I got there how they had these outsiders. I don't want to call them aliens or foreigners, outsiders, not nationals that came in, set up in those buildings around the area there that's supposed to infiltrate the lines to vote for their what they prefer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we stood up there in the morning, we have guys like this guy there, Big Steve, Curtis Cook, Sam Conda, Dwyer Astafan, and a great deal of other people. We canvass in the area, partner. And I have my long lens camera because I brought down my cameras with the extended lens. Where I could catch you from Nevis on it if I have to, right? And the amount of people they have lined up to come to infiltrate those lines. If we didn't have a team that we had, they would have been able to infiltrate the line. I do not know if you heard about the incident where the station should be closed at, I think, was 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the lines is still around the block.
Mm-hmm.
when Dwyer called me over and he explained to me the process and stuff, when he approached one of the, we speak about overseas observers, they don't always work in our favor, you know. Because when Dwyer asked the gentleman the question, the gentleman is saying that the line have to be, they have to close the door, and who don't vote according to the law, right?
Yeah.
At that point, Dwyer called the supervisor of elections, who was Bailey at the time. And I could hear the argument back and forth on the phone, so I have a pretty good idea whatever Bailey said to Dwyer was not acceptable, and Dwyer give him the letter of the law. Anyway, the end result was the voting continued into sometime after 10, 11 that night. We didn't leave there. And every attempt they made to infiltrate the line, we had the people in place, well coordinated to stop them. What I'm saying to you is that the coordination that I see we had in St. Kitts to stop those outsiders from coming in to give us a government that we don't need, that coordination was nowhere in Nevis.
Yes.
When I got to Nevis, my first disappointment, when I know we have a problem in Nevis, there's a gentleman by the name of Alvan Brown. I was running around with him that day. He was the one driving me around. And we was up at a place called Occasions, where there was an event for incoming nationals, overseas nationals that came in for the election. And while we're there, a call came in that the electoral office is open and people there who should not be in there. And I asked Alvan to rush me over there. When we get there and I start setting up my camera and everything, everybody hollers, pull along the gate and whatever, right? And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why are polling officers going to the electoral office the night before the elections, picking up materials to take to their house, to take to the polling station the next morning. That in itself did not make sense to me, amongst many other things. And the supervisor of election was called. And a lot of things I think that went wrong. It's unfortunate we didn't have the time to hear this matter in court. But I can assure you, as the AG says, the Attorney General office does not run the election, but electoral reform is coming. So I am pretty sure that a lot of these things that transpire in this last election will have to change, because I am one of the people here to testify on the wrongdoing, you know. And I'm going to stay on the case because these things cannot be well. Several things have to change. And I understand they spoke about trying to have election at the same time in St. Kitts and Nevis. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a brilliant idea. I mean, it will save us the huge investment in cost and human resources to be conducting separate elections. I can't see why it cannot have on the same day the federal and the local. All you need is a longer ballot box, longer ballot paper for Nevis. So you're announcing the federal, you're voting for both the federal candidates and the local candidates at the same time.
All right.
So it makes perfect sense. And also you want to see fixed election dates.
Correct.
This issue of hiding, dates, trying to catch the opposition off guard. It's undemocratic. It's it should be unconstitutional. Put the date fixed. We know at a stage where we are now equal in terms of the year, 5-year terms, August 5th, December 12th. So it is easy now to say, listen, one date, 5 years from now or 4 years from now, this is the date, get it into law. All right, there's no difficulty about this. This is not rocket science, for Christ's sakes. Save us the trauma of having to prosecute 2 elections in Nevis and get it done on one single day. I don't see the point of pursuing it to the nth degree. Second thing, we need to move to electronic voting so that the votes can be tallied quicker. People are certain by 2 hours after the poll close who the winners are, rather than dragging it out, hours into the morning when more suspicion arises that something untoward is happening.
Well, partner, that's crazy,
It's craziness. I mean, you got a voting population in Nevis with about 5,000 people voting, and you're going to take, I mean, 12 hours to count. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous, all right? So there are easier ways of conducting elections and that are more secure and more transparent, you know. And I hope that that these kind of reforms are done, you know, and the electoral office itself is more accountable, more transparent, more fair, more balanced than we have right now. You know, you can't have the sitting government, regardless of who is in power, being the only persons or institution to choose who works in the electoral office. The opposition must have a member there, and the government must have a member there. All right, it's the only fair thing to do. All right, if you're going to spend give the leader of the opposition an allowance to conduct that office, you also need to give certain courtesies to the leader of the opposition to name a member to the electoral office. I mean, it's only fair.
I'm glad you bring up the topic of opposition. Did you guys get to the root of the situation there, whether or not the NIA is paying for an opposition office in Nevis still?
Apparently they are. Apparently they are. The last report I heard was that the payment for February was processed and paid. And this is something that is really troubling, not because of who is involved, but what is involved. You have an issue of the leadership or the leader position in contention. You cannot, as a government, be choosing sides as to whether you should continue the payment or not. Put the payment in escrow, put it on hold, and whoever emerges at whatever point that funds are supposed to be credited to the leader of the opposition office. To do it otherwise, it's telling you that you're biased against one against the next. I can see why this present government would want to continue the payment, because if you look at the level of support for the Honorable Cleon Stephen Simmons, 99% of it is coming from the incumbent government. I mean, that is the reality of it, and you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why are they supporting her not only in our contention to be leader or to hold on to this issue of the leader of the opposition, but continue to fund her office? Why? It is clear to me and clear to most persons who are interested in the topic that is meant to divide and conquer. That, you know, a person who should be your nemesis and is now your advisor. And
Well, Daily, that is very disturbing to hear that this office is still being paid for and not resolving the issue at hand. We know that there was 3 parties that contested the NIA election: the NRP, the CCM, and God knows the name of the other one, I do not know. But we know for sure that it's only NRP and CCM was victorious at the polls. Correct?
yes.
Common sense would have told us that by now we would have had a leader of the opposition nominated from the NRP end. That was not done. If this premier and his cabinet had any interest of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis in their heart and in their mind, paying for an office, whether it's 12,000, 15,000, whatever thousand, paying for an office for a matter that is not settled, satisfied by the people, is unreal, and it does not make sense. They know that there's an impasse in the NRP. So why are you paying for an office for the opposition when there is no leader of the opposition?
It's fraud.
It's fraud. And it needs to be investigated. And the government, the money needs to be go back, you know. Somebody need to pay it back, you know. It doesn't matter to me who paid it. But if you cannot, since you cannot settle who is the leader of the opposition, there is no office of the leader of the opposition. It's as simple as that, you know.
Correct, correct.
We accept too much nonsense down there in St. Kitts and Nevis. And these matters need to be dealt with. The people need to stand up. It's their money. There's people asking about help with PAP. The $500 the people asking for PAP. You could imagine if you split up that, whatever, how much thousand it is?
What's that? 16,000.
16,000. You know how much divisions that 16,000 could help? So while the premier out there talking about people should not expect to get a $500 per month allowance for PAP, he's trying money into something that he don't need to.
But in addition to that, if I may, when you look at the expansion of his advisory group, you know how Jefferson lost in the local campaign. He's come back as a specialist advisor on foreign investments. You have Latoya Jones, a candidate over there in St. Thomas, Nevis 5. She is continuing as a community advisor, a specialist. Then you have one in public works. We are suspecting it is the former Speaker of the Federal Parliament, Mikey Perkins. No name has been assigned to that specialist advisor position, but it's in public works. And all these advisors are walking home north of $117,000, per year. I mean, we all knew, we anticipated that Zook would not be thrown out on his butt like he should have been, because you were rejected by the people of St. James, Nevis 4. You were resurrected as an advisor, special advisor, in an area that is so sensitive, talking about foreign investments. And all he does is go across to the Vance Amory International Airport in the early mornings or afternoons and take pictures of planes landing and taking off and post them and say something good is happening. I mean, I can get a school child to do that on a bus heading from Newcastle to town. It doesn't make any sense. You know, what does it bring to the table? I mean, I heard, in a sidebar kind of topic, I heard the governor of the central bank, discussion about trying to get people who are fit for purpose to sit on boards of banks because of the challenge of making sure banks don't succumb to fraud and bank become bankrupt. And so he's asking for intervention where the central bank has some role in approving people who sit on boards. So in the same vein, right, we are having a situation where persons who are not fit for purpose making decisions about investments. I mean, he couldn't find his way out of a clear plastic bag that had both ends cut off. And so he is an advisor on what?
Well,
on what, $117,000 a year to advise on what?
This thing cannot, this CCM regime cannot go for a full 5-year term. Otherwise, Nevis will be definitely below where Christina is. So we really have to get our heads together and deal with this corruption that is taking place there in our sister island. But daily, this conversation will continue. We ain't get halfway into it as yet, but I cannot give no more overtime. I know you guys are customer going all night. We already an hour overtime here. We already an hour overtime here, so I'm going to drop a track here to try and liberate the minds of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and give you a chance to do your final closing. I really want to thank you for taking the time out and joining me this evening. I understand Brother Carlisle is busy with a team that is visiting from the Atlanta area. I also want to apologize to the divisions out there who did not understood what transpired on Saturday. I had some technical issues. The Prime Minister allowed me some extra time that we could have had that conversation. And the matter of the hospital, I couldn't ask him questions about the new hospital wing and those stuff because I would have had to play clips that would have taken up time. It didn't make sense asking a question without having the facts to give to him for his opinion. Just the same, I asked him about the overseas observers and he asked for the clip, which I did not have. So I like to have my receipts. I don't want to be like the CCM team who giving you the wrong receipts. I want to bring the real receipts. So until such time, we're going to drop this track here that folks could just liberate themselves. I want to thank everyone for hanging in this evening. Thank Brother Elvan Ellie, my boy, Brother Ike, my engineer, that really did a good job cleaning up my computer and tried to get us back on track. But the struggle continues, Brother Daly, and we just have to whole strain. I stand by for this one. This one is called Liberate Your Mind by the man. Okay, La Tumba.
Oh, can we be liberated when we are so confused? This country is so divided. There are so many different views. Every finger's pointing away from its own hand. We shouting blame and crying shame, but all are guilty just the same. Liberate your mind, my brethren. Liberate your mind, I say. Distrust and greed is keeping us back, crippling the state. We got to rise to the occasion and demonstrate to the world that we all are one, that we in this little country could live in love and harmony, working for prosperity, prosperity for you and me. Some campaigning, some dictating. Everybody want to control. There's no process for creating an awareness of greater social and economic goals. This system has got to go, or we will suffer more. The power only working for a society privileged you. So true. Liberate your mind, my brethren. Liberate your mind, I say. Distrust and greed is keeping us back, crippling the state. We got to rise to the occasion and demonstrate to the world that we all are one, that we in this little country can live in love and harmony, working for prosperity, prosperity for you and me. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. La Tumba.
Despite the differences our eyes have seen, we need political unity. Be ready to unite and to work, not fight. Stand up for justice and for right. Break down the barriers in this land, stand between the working man who died so long, worked so hard, get so little out of life. Got here right, liberate your mind, my brethren. Liberate your mind, I say. Distrust and greed is keeping us back, crippling the state. We got to rise to the occasion and demonstrate to the world that we all are one, that we in this little country can live in love and harmony, working for prosperity, prosperity for you and me. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Brother Daly. I hope that the people of Nevis can just liberate themselves. I do not know if you all have the luxury, like we have in St. Kitts, to go into Parliament and sit and listen to what's happening, or how you all will go about it. But I know from the little I heard on television here that Baby Brantley is aware that there is no opposition leader in the NIA, which means there is no one to occupy that office. So I think the speaker need to find out where the money is going, because that money should not be going anywhere. Since the elections, and there has not been a leader of the opposition. I don't have access to the guidelines in that regard. So I would appreciate it if you guys, you or Carlisle, one of you could look up that information and see the guidelines for paying that kind of money. Maybe we could talk about it next week or the next time that you join me.
Okay.
So you're closing.
Well, let me first off thank you again for inviting me to be a part of your program. It was an enjoyable and informative session. And I hope that those who listened and participated would feel likewise. I listened to the song. It's a good closing song. And the one line in there that said it all. Despite the differences our eyes have seen, we are one. And I've been saying this from this platform and other platforms so for a long time, for all those who care to listen. At the end of the day, we all Nevisians and residents here. We all going to suffer the same fate if we do not come together. We have pointed out many, many times that this government is not fit for purpose. We have told people, we have shown them examples. I've spoken to many divisions who support CCM. I said, can you support a government that is selling our patrimony for the sake of a vote? We are giving away our patrimony through this fake marriage issue. Can you support that? No, but then how can you vote continuously for them? I mean, there are so many things wrong when a government and headed by a man who will do anything to stay in power. Anything to stay in power. How can you support a man who is offering the Spanish community, the Hispanic community, free passports, he's on a poster advertising, come get your free food, free drink, and free passport. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what he's talking about. Then you look at all the concessions granted just before elections about work permit, reduction in fees, amnesty and all this. We are seeing the alien land holding license tax being revoked, suspended for a period of time, all to harness the overseas vote. Can you, as a Nevisian, a patriot, a person who loves your country, be putting others ahead of you? How can you then allow your premier to do the same thing to us? We are in the end inhabitants of this rock. We have to go to the same supermarket, the same hospital, the same schools. So why do you feel that for some reason, because of your political strife, that you'll be treated any different at the counter, at the bank, or at the supermarket? It is the same money, the same hardship. All we're asking divisions to do is to open their eyes. Despite our political differences, we should not be at each other's throats wanting the worst for each other. Because at the end of it, who is making the money? Who is having opportunities? Not us, not the poor people who are tearing each other. You're not going to find Brantley in town cussing passers-by, but you're going to find supporters of Brantley cussing, and say, please, leave my premier alone and all those talk about premier and all that. We are the ones, the persons who are struggling the most with making life. We're the ones who are at each other's throats, while those with the money and influence, they're drinking wine and eating cheese. And we have to learn. We have to learn the difference. Who is for us and who is not. And surrender to Caesar's what is Caesar's. Because it is clear that this government here is not for us, Nevisians. It is not for us. Every indicator has shown that it's not for us. I want to know on what platform, on what level are Nevisians voting. And I do appreciate the fact they're voting less for him. But those who are supporting him, what are they seeing? What are they seeing, Jeffrey, that we are not seeing? What are they seeing that we're not seeing? Because I don't think I'm blind. We all recognize the shortages, that the shortfalls in our income. We all recognize that the money was squandered. We all recognize that we are worse off now than we were 10 years ago. So what are we voting on? Every economic indicator tells us we're going down the wrong direction. We have not been able to attract a single hotel since 4 seasons. And that was brought by NRP. Mount Nevis was brought by NRP. Bank of Nevis, the Sixth Form College. What are those indicators of? Those are indicators of performance. What have they brought? What have they brought to guarantee or to say, listen, we deserve another chance? What? So they resort to buying votes, importing voters from the Dominican Republic and elsewhere to make sure they stay in power, because they know once they're out of power, the investigation will start as to what happened to the hundreds of millions of dollars that came into our coffers. There are people who want to know. So they're desperately trying to hold on to power to prevent any investigation. But I do thank the federal government, in my closing, that their anti-corruption bill and their freedom of information bill and the strengthening of the integrity of public life bill have given us some hope that there is justice somewhere, and we will find it. Good night, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. And I also want to thank Cousin Pam there for allowing my young cousin, Mr. Benny there, that did a very great job there on the weekend to assist in saving 2 lives on the Virgin Islands. I also want to thank his grandfather there, Ken Benny Sr., for being a part of the program. I want to big up my boy Carbo. I hope you put your information for the place there in the chat. You know, you will get some lovely goat water and fish water over there by my boy Carbo. Look forward to that. I want to big up the man Elvin Ellie again for his assistant, Brother Ike, my engineer, for his hard work. I want to touch my baby girl there, my son Jeffroy Jr. over there in the California area, and his lady Jazette, my sister Esther in Tortola, Mokesh, and the kids. I want to big up my daughter Rochelle in Ohio and the grandkids. Yeah, we have a lot of work to be done in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, and God's blessing, we're gonna get around to that. I want to big up Brother Austin Williams and the crew there and the rooftop, Sister Leah Francis, the man Officer Francis, the man Dams, Officer Hendrickson and crew. Brother Curtis Cook, the man Ike, the man Monarch, the man Ronnie Rascal and team. We're gonna drop this track, the unofficial national anthem of St. Kitts Nevis. This one is coming from the late great, the King Arrow. I ask that you listen to the lyrics. I know the music is sweet, but just check the lyrics of this track. This one is called Arise, my good people. Want to big up the man, King Freddie, the man Freddie Williams there, Sister Naomi Ward, Sister Pantine.
Country dying and never lend a helping hand. Could you see your children's future dwindling, creating much disillusion? Or would we watch on idly, disregarding ourselves? reintegrate and correct all mistakes. Reunification, building a brand new nation. We move on together hand in hand. Rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours. Can your conscience be clear? Indulging corruption or misusing public office, being accused of unemployment and crimes, or disrupting a citizen's peace. Oh, my country in this harmony, separated politically. Hatred for a brother, cannot love each other. No, I say no, not at all. Citizens, let's unite and stand up for rights, all our lives and our lives. Let us reintegrate and correct all mistakes. Reunification, building a brand new nation. We'll move on together hand in hand. So rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours.
Yes, that's the song of the late great King Arrow. This country is yours, my people. You're all yours. Do the right thing. Good evening, Sister Ingrid Daniel Farrell. How are you doing? Brother Henry Daniel, how are you doing? Good evening, sir. Yoni Door. For you folks out there who have not purchased your raffle ticket as yet from the Divisions for Nevis organization here in the Boogie Down Bronx, the raffle is this coming Saturday, and it's going to be carried live via this medium at 8 p.m. So you can reach out to the members of the Division for Nevis, Sister Hazel Claxton, you got Jane Snyder, Saida Sari, you got Twiller, amongst other folks out there that you may know. Reach out to them. They have some very good cash prizes and other stuff that will be raffled on Saturday evening. This coming Saturday, the 18th of March, the raffle will be drawn live at 8 p.m. and I will be carrying it via this medium live for you. You'll be able to see if you win your money or not. So reach out to those folks, or you can reach out to me and I can get you their contact numbers so that you can get your raffles. I want to say good night to my cousin Gloria Hutchinson. How are you doing? Sister Lynette Hutchinson, how are you doing? Man Joseph Emmanuel down there at the Garvey's Estate. How are you doing, my brother? Hope all is well. Folks, don't forget you can check out the Garvey's Estate for your weddings, whatever session you want to have, whether indoor or outdoor. We also have rooms for rent. Apply within. when you check in there, you'll get a nice experience. A lot of views, good views on that end to take pictures and stuff like that. You're also looking right over the ocean, watching the ships sail in and as they sail out. Lovely view. Don't forget to check my boy over there in Frigate Bay as well, the Jamrock restaurant. Check out the brother there, Michael Clark and co. Very lovely food. Also, brother Marshall's just up the hill from the roundabout. Check them out. Lovely people, great food. In the meantime and between time, don't forget our bus ride that is scheduled for July 29th. Tickets are on sale. Just reach out to me, 917-597-0195. That's 917-597-0195. Get your tickets early, lock them in. You know, they don't stay on hand long. So if you intend to be on that bus, you know, it's a party ride, yeah? Serious party session. So that's July 29th. And for those of you who will be in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, the JefroyMorrishaw Sports Club will be on tour from June 17th to July 1st. St. Kitts and Nevis, watch out. You know, when we drop out, things go. That mean a board get beat up, pitch get licking, you know, so we look forward to that. I want to big up my boy, the Houston Centrics, one more time. How is the Houston area there? Everything good with you? The man Kibo. God bless you.